Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call a Board of Selectmen to order for February 20th at 7 p.m.
And I'd like to call to order the Board of Finance on this Thursday, February 20th. Let's call the meeting to order by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Assessor. I think our first presentation is Assessor.
Red beat right in the beginning, good.
Thank you.
There.
Thank you.
You get-
Paper.
Yay, more paperwork. You guys have that, so Okay, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
To go over my budget, I'm pretty much a pretty flat budget this year, which is hopefully you guys are happy with that. You'll see a couple of things that are increased in my budget. One, of course, is being education, which I think is very important, especially since we're getting in a time where people are lawsuits and, with real estate. The better educated we all are, the better it is. So you'll see that there's an increase, and that's where I put a paper just to give you one of the courses that I wanted to take is the International Association of Assessors. And that one, the courses are about $550. I put $575 just in case, so that way next year, if it goes up a little. So there is a little increase in that budget from $42.36 to about $48.11. You'll also see, excuse me, the other increase would be in my auditing. And I just wanted to show, and that's on this summary page. Last year when we did the auditing, we spent about $10,000. For the 2016 grand lease, that increased us in dollars of $30,768. And 17, because it's a 3-year, you go back, so you do 16, 17, and 18. In 17, it increased us about $33,902. And in 18, it increased us about $23,124. I can't always guarantee that I'm gonna get those kind of returns. As we go through people, sometimes some people haven't filed correctly, sometimes you don't get as much. But we did pretty good in the last audits when we did that. The other thing that I'd like to say, and it just goes to stuff that we do in the office, but we have the income and expense reports that everybody has to commercial, industrial, properties have to, apartment buildings. And that one for the 2018 grand list gave us an increase in revenue about $46,000. So these are extra things that we do in the office that, nobody even really sees. We did see quite a bit in increase. I think the building department mentioned that their building permits have been up, which means my work has increased, which is good. So just on survey maps, I think we've seen about a 52% increase on those. We have for motor vehicles, the grand list has gone up with the motor vehicles. Times are a little better. People are buying newer cars. That's a positive. So we've seen about a 1.6% increase in our motor vehicle. Certificate of changes and corrections, those are all things that we do, whether increasing it for building permits, or if we do motor vehicle, those have increased about 38%. And then the building permits, that's where I mentioned there were about 1121 building permits. That's about a 41% increase in workload for us. So those are some of the things that we've been pretty busy with. I've seen a good increase for the last 2 years. I think I've seen about a 1.6% increase last year in our grand list, and about a 1.4 I'm looking at for this year. So I think we're doing good in Bethel compared to some other towns.
And Izzy, I'm sorry, remind us, what's your year I know we've got fiscal year. we've got
Yeah, so we're
calendar
working
year.
on the 10/1/2019 grand list,
Okay.
where you guys are working.
And you're projecting growth in the 10/1/20 to 9/30/20.
We're gonna see that growth in July of 2020 through 21, through April of 21. That's where those tax bills would be paid.
Great, thank you. Every year, you have to explain that to me
Yeah.
before you get the assessment.
And everybody who comes in my office.
Thank you.
So that's pretty much it. That's about my budget. The rest of it's salary, of course. There's, in contracted services are software I have no control over. And that didn't change. That actually stayed flat this year, so that was good.
So any efficiencies or other things to report
If you
this
can
year?
make more of me, we need more people in that, but that's always.
Well, there
you know,
are
it's
2 extra
busier.
days in the week.
Yeah. But I think we're doing good. I think we're busy in office. We have a great office. I have a great camaraderie in our office. They work hard. I think that's important. So,
I have a question on the personal property audits. For those 3 years and that, the associated dollar amounts, are those new people each year, or is that because, you know, ABC company was found, so they're on the 16 list, the 17 list? Or the
No,
18?
that is
So
the
they're-
audit.
each one
So
is
what I
different?
do is I will take different companies. Normally what happens is we review personal property declarations every year. If there's errors or discrepancies, we start marking them in red. Well, if you start seeing a bunch of companies where you say, okay, there's a lot of things, most times people forget to write things off. Or they just don't put them on. They think, especially I'll use an example, is you have a lot of leasing companies and the person leases it. Well, then they buy it out for $1. They really didn't buy it out for $1. That was just the end of the lease. You paid through that whole time for that lease, $15,000, $20,000, maybe a copier. They forget to put those in. So those are things that we pick up on the audits.
But when you pick them up in 1 year, you're going back to the other 2 years too.
We go back to 3 years, but they're
Right.
also increased for the now 19, because now they file, of course, so you're actually making more money overall.
Mhm.
Because now at 19, they will look at their 16, 17, 18, and then they will also pay, you know, be more accurate on their 19. So it helps going forward as well.
And about how many accounts are you able to do?
That was 10. So
10.
if I do, oh, that's why I wanted to increase to 12. They're about $1,000 an audit. If they're a smaller company, it might be 800. So if it's maybe a little smaller company, I might be able to get 2. Do you know what I mean? So I can work a little bit with that. If I did a big company, it could be more, but we're probably in that middle range now.
So what are the salary increases? Is that for, there are 4 people in your office?
3 people.
3? So, okay. So is that each salary has been increased? I just-
Well, they had a 2%, I think, was last year. There's the 2%?
Okay, I'm missing 2%?
No, that's 2% from last year to this year, the salary increase, which is in the contract.
Raises though, because the contract.
It's in the contract.
You had retro in
It
there.
says
'cause the
4%,
contract
Oh,
was
that's right, and there was a
negotiated.
retro.
Okay, that's what I,
That's
okay,
why,
all
yeah,
right.
sorry about that.
So it is 4%.
Yeah,
Or-
2,
yeah.
2 from last year and 2 for this year?
Correct.
And you have one of your employees is newer, so they're.
Oh,
on
so and
step.
she's on the step. So we do have one employee that's getting her steps. I think she started at 80, was she? I can't remember.
She was low.
Yeah, she was
Percent, don't say 80, like.
80%,
it's 80,000.
yeah, not
Yeah.
80,000,
Yeah,
80%.
80%.
80%. I want that job.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
any more questions for Izzy?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Izzy.
Have a good night. Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully it goes quickly. Yeah, Bobby.
P and Z?
Can I ask Bob up here too to help me show how to make it real quick?
He doesn't bring any notes.
I
so,
know.
you it's-
I think everybody knows who I am. I'm Dr. Wagner. I'm the Director of Planning at the Land Use Department. In regards to my department, 250, we've asked for no increases. I don't think we've asked for an increase in a couple of years now, as far as our budget, and if you have any questions pertaining to the department budget, I'd be more than happy to answer, if I know the answer. Basically, it's the same, there's 3 full-time employees and one part-time zoning inspector. And at this time, I don't feel the need to ask for any increase in personnel. We seem to be functioning well, we all work well together, and we work very well with the other departments. If you don't have any questions in regards to that, I will spend a few minutes talking about the increase in the boards and commissions account. I believe you show an increase in, planning and zoning board of appeals and inland wetlands, I hope, maybe.
Oh, that's a different account.
It
Yeah,
is, I don't know,
340.
what account is that?
340.
So just before we leave the planning and zoning, so there's a 4% increase here too for salaries.
Right.
I would defer to
Can I explain
the
that real
finance
quick?
department, I don't,
So, most of the offices in this town building, the office staff is union. So last year at this time, their contract expired 6/30 of 19. Because the contract was done after that, the wage adjustment account had part of those raises in it. So now what you're seeing in here is really 2 years of raises.
Just catching up, right?
And Beth's department
for the
is-
union.
Yes. And Beth's
Right.
department is also another department that has a newer employee. I say newer, they've been here 4 years, David?
Almost.
So but it takes, most union employees, it takes 5 years to get to 100%, so there's also a step in there too.
Fred, so does the wage contingency line go down this year?
It would, except it still has the police in there.
So the police haven't, so wage.
The police
contingency-
and dispatchers, the
Public Works.
dispatcher's contract ends 6/30 of 20. So obviously, the police lines aren't up for negotiated salaries, it's because it's in the wage adjustment.
So when they
And
get their,
non-union.
when they get their retro, does that come from wage adjustment? Like, that's how you,
Yeah.
that's how you handle that?
Yes,
It's an accumulation in wage adjustments for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So that number's gotten bigger over the last couple of years too.
But you pull it out when you need it, basically.
yes.
So it's
Does
not
it-
that it would create the illusion that last year was 2% less, I mean, because now I'm thinking it's 4% now, it showed up as 2% last year, right?
No, last year it was flat. There was a
Okay.
little bit, because the non-union got raises, because our raises
Right.
are always determined after July 1st.
See, when they're
But-
without a contract, they don't get a raise.
Until it's.
So like, we've been
No, I
3
know,
years
that's
in
the
arrear,
rate, yeah.
so that's why you'll see a big
I
jump.
got it. So that's the wage contingency fund that
Yes.
takes care of that, okay.
Yeah, but when the contract expires for this 1 year, it makes it look out of, well, for 2 years. Last
Right.
year looked out of whack because there wasn't raises. This year looks like it's out of whack because it's really 2 years
Higher,
of raises.
yeah. All right, thanks.
And Brad does, if I'm following this, it means that the wage contingency account is lower by the offset from prior years.
It
Otherwise,
would be, but we still have outstanding contracts. The big
Understood.
one's the police.
Understood, but
Yeah.
that balance would have been even higher. Otherwise, we're double counting
Yeah,
salaries.
yeah, if the union, if the office workers union wasn't done,
Right,
and that was still outstanding, the wage adjustment account would be higher.
Yeah.
And the wages in the departments would be flat
Lower.
still because of it. It's in different buckets, because we don't know what it's gonna be until the contract's done.
and does it, I'm assuming it zeroes out, right? So like last year, we put money in contingency assuming a number.
Yeah, depending on
So-
how negotiations go.
Understood, so, but there wasn't 2% in this account, there was 2% in wage contingency.
That's right.
Yes.
So if we don't offset, we've double counted. So I'm assuming if we were to think about the police, just to throw out a number, that wage contingency may be 100, but because we have some carry forward from the prior year, it's less than that.
Well, you're
It's
assuming
less-
that a contract hasn't, because each union negotiates at a different time. So let's say Public Works is coming up and they weren't in the last contract, wage contingency would probably stay the same, because even though they settled one contract, they have an open contract, so you might not see the dip, is what I think what they tried saying to me was that, you know, based on, so even though we took this 2% out and we don't need it anymore, another contract's come
that was my
Yeah.
But it's gonna be
bad
different numbers because you
example.
gotta do it based on the salary in that department, or that union.
You'll see it when Public Works goes, because their contract ended 6/30/19, right? So until that contract settled, the money for those raises is in wage adjustments, and the budget for that department was flat for salaries, for union.
And the expense of adding to the wage contingency was taken last year in the budget.
For the contracts that were outstanding
Oh,
at that time,
exactly.
yes.
So
But
my-
if it's open 2 years, Bob, you gotta add another year on, because the original year drops to the fund balance.
Sure.
Okay, and then you know, if you negotiated in that second year, you gotta have the wages to pay back the retro.
I mean, it doesn't impact these numbers all that much, but it does have, right, contingency is a big number. We've added 4%, so we've added about $8,000 here. Presumably, you took some of that out of wage contingency.
Yeah, so if you look at the wage adjustment account, the wage adjustment account is up $40,000. And if you think about what's currently outstanding in that, is police for budget year 21,
Right.
public works for budget year 21, dispatchers for budget year 21, and non-union. Because the union, the office workers settled, that's dropped off, the number's still up because we still have 3 outstanding union.
And you added a layer, another year of a
Yeah.
layer, but this number had to have come out of contingency in some part, or otherwise we're
Your-
double counting
Your
salaries.
year, when you do year-end transfers,
It's coming out of there.
it comes out of there.
Got it. Okay, thank you, sorry for the. Just wanted to make sure.
We're good.
Huh?
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Okay. So I wanted to just talk about the board, 340, boards and commissions. My land use commissions, you'll see an increase there, I believe. And I just wanna spend a little time talking about the increase. Legal notice fees is always a big thing with Cynthia. It's always been a big thing with me, as far as publication to the News Times, unfortunately. It's our only source of publication now, and those fees are scheduled to go up this year. But along the same lines with what I'm gonna be working with the commissions on is, the request by the general public for notice and ways to notice, letting them know when there's development going on a piece of property or when a public hearing is being held. I've talked to several planners and listservs and stuff across the state, and we've come up with an idea, and we're gonna implement it here this year if we do get the extra money. And that is very simply developing a lawn sign system. When a property is going to be developed and there's a public hearing, we put a sign out, with lettering, it costs about $25 a sign or whatever, says this property is proposed for development, please contact Facebook to get all your information pertaining to the development. I'm making a joke and nobody's getting it. It's gonna say,
Oh, wow.
please contact
I was like,
the
say
planning
I
and
know, it's
zoning.
like, friend me on Facebook.
We're numb to that now.
I know.
Yeah, we're numb.
Okay, you are numb,
That's where
good,
people
that's
get their-
good.
Yeah.
But that's where people
But
get their
that's where
information.
people are
Yeah,
getting.
that's true.
a
We're
lot
saying,
of
okay,
it.
It's all true.
Okay.
That's
you
where
know?
they're getting their misinformation. They're gonna be told to contact the land use department to find out what's going on. So the land use department is giving them proper information on what is going on. We contacted the town of Berlin, which is similar, is about 20,000, close to our population. It's something I'm dying to try to institute, but unfortunately, we have to work out the kinks, figure out how we're going to, we'll do the initial publication, we'll demand that they put this, it's, the minutia associated with it. We'll work it out, and after one budget year, we'll probably have a fee in place for a developer to give us $25, we'll give them the sign, they gotta return it, but I don't wanna bother you with that part of it right now. So anyways, besides the cost in, legal fees to the News Times, there's a little bit of cushion in there, I wanna say $300 or $400, so we can get some signs for each of the land use commissions, cause they each have to have their own sign. And the second part of that is, we did complete our plan of conservation and development. Instead of having a large book, which we do, and we have hard copies and it's on the web, we also developed what we call an executive summary. For example, when Bob goes down to the city looking for money from, I forget their names, or whoever it is, or when he has to do the bond presentation for our bond rating, we have an 18 to 20 page executive summary that can be used as a handout, as you, as the chairman, a Board of Finance, you, when you go down to meet with the bonding people.
S&P,
And,
S&P.
and that is something that there's many different departments would find a use for that, especially when we're asking for money or trying to present the town to a developer. I can see Janice from the Economic Development Department using that when she's approaching people about the town. You don't wanna hand them a plan, you wanna hand them, and I'm sorry, I don't have enough printer cartridges to print out. It's about a 20-page document, and it's a beautiful color document, but it's looking for printing on that.
Beth, can
Your
you
colors.
email us that report?
Sure,
Because we're
absolutely.
gonna be doing a roadshow soon with the rating agencies
Okay,
for the bond issuance coming up in July, and that might be helpful.
okay, but I usually, you know, I looked at Bob only because he's always looking for a POCD when he's going down to
Yeah.
talk. But I mean, that's printing for the executive summary, so we'll have copies available, so everybody here within the building will be able to, not everybody, but those like you and Bob and
Yeah.
Matt and Janice can use them for other purposes.
So this idea of the sign and the reference is, right now, in addition to the required publication in News Times, is there some idea that it might replace that or
No.
be accepted instead?
Unfortunately.
Ever?
The publication in the News Times is a statutory requirement by the state of Connecticut. That's why we do it.
Beth, just so you know, that there may be another option, because I've been discussing with Matt, so I don't know, hopefully, you know, we could possibly have another option, so
It'd be great to have another option.
I'm pretty much committed to getting rid of that, you know, so.
I have no
Just because
problem
the
with
penny
that.
saver tanked.
But
doesn't
you
stop
have to
my
think of
burn.
it, you have to think of my requirements, and people don't understand a lot of the rules and regulations I follow.
I understand the statutory regulations,
Are similar
absolutely.
to,
I
it's a
under-
technicality in a court case. If you don't read somebody the Miranda rights
I
right,
understand.
it gets thrown out.
But the
If you
point
don't
is that
have
that language
the
is
legal-
a little bit flexible, and I've also talked to people up at, you know, the state on it too. It's a little bit vague, so I'm just saying there might be another option.
Well, until I hear from my land use special counsel that I can do that, unfortunately, I have to publish in the News Times.
So in
And you
essence,
should.
this new strategy is going to at least get rid of some of the
All I wanna do-
conspiracy theories that go rampant.
No, what it is just basically letting the public know that something's going on. That's all it is doing a public service to the town of Bethel residents. You know, you go by a street, you see the sign, oh, they're doing something, they're gonna do something. Then you go, you pick up the phone, or you call us and you say, hey, what's going on in such and such place? Before, you know, the drama of seeing a shovel go in the ground, or reading it in the newspaper if you read the newspaper. That's all we're trying to do, is give some clarity.
Good.
Yeah, if you could email that executive summary, I think that'd be really helpful.
Great, okay, I will.
Cool, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
And that's all I have for you, unless you have any other questions?
I have,
Yes, Rich?
when the last time you raised your fees?
2017, I believe. It was after we did our upgrade with our zoning regs.
What do you think the ratio is between what we charge developers for fees, for like printing and your time and everybody else's time in the office? You think it's a 50-50 thing, or?
I don't understand your
Well,
question,
I mean,
I'm sorry.
they pay us for the advertising and things like that?
Part of the application.
Part of the application fees.
Right.
My question is, their application fees, does that cover your time and your department's time?
And the publication.
And the publications? Do we need to raise those fees?
I would say.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in town, and I think
Mhm.
it's putting a burden on every department in town.
Well, if you look at our budget, again, I do it kind of like a calendar year. Our revenues have increased from 92,000 to 133.
Okay.
As far as the amount of time that it takes to process an application, we can always look at our fees. I think that our fees are in the middle compared to other towns. On our planners listserv, we've done comparisons over the years. Every once in a while, somebody will pull it up and have us look at it. in Bethel, what I like to think is that what we do is we take an initial application, we'll look at it, and we have this, we have a little bit of wiggle room with a regulation. If an application comes in and I say, whoa, this is gonna be a major traffic, a lot of traffic issues with that. We have a regulation which is we require the applicant to pay for the town's traffic engineering study on a project.
Okay.
We require an applicant to pay for the town's architect to review a project. Anything dealing with a specialized field that is a little bit outside of the norm, we do a chargeback to the applicant.
Okay.
A lot of towns don't do that, but we do.
So you're saying,
Okay.
Beth, that covers the out-of-pocket costs? in
It
addition
doesn't,
to-
it never covers the out-of-pocket cost totally, because we're still providing a service to the town, and sometimes that service is unexpected. We could get an application in that could start out being something very simple, but as time goes on and more information is received during the process, it could become more complicated.
Well, you have several of those cases right now where they get drawn out, aren't they?
Well, it's not drawn out, they become complicated.
Well, okay.
We get accused of,
But you said you haven't really adjusted anything since 2017?
correct.
I think it's time. I'm taking a look at this budget, look, the numbers are getting astronomical. And, everybody's been getting salary increases. I mean, it's really time to reconsider. Perhaps your office should just take a look at it and revisit it.
I'd be more than happy to do that, Paul, but I always consider our office as not a revenue generator through our budget. Our
Every
office
dollar
is a
counts.
revenue generator for the town of Bethel in general.
Hey, Paul, the police department is not a revenue.
service.
This is a service protecting the town, but you're trying, the grand list keeps growing. So, I've heard so far, we're gonna raise the train fees, we're gonna, these are certain things that we have to provide as a town, and we don't have to whack every small little guy that walks in front of these boards and commissions.
But we're already 3 years we haven't looked at.
But I can just say from pulling permits and things like that, especially if you're building a new house, you're looking at thousands of dollars. And, most of these builders, they're doing 1-2 houses a year. I mean, they're spending a lot of money and, they're just not gonna eat it. They're gonna absorb it to the
Right,
people.
they're gonna pass it on.
I think it's a balancing.
I agree. I'm not asking for anything
But the optics to
astronomical.
raise it 20 or
No,
30
like,
or
I can see
$40
making them pay for the
is
signs.
just trying to
That
pick
makes
somebody's
sense
pocket.
if it's a
Yeah, to
requirement.
pay for, not for income generator, but to pay for their time's involvement in it. I mean,
So Beth, when
we're
you.
we're
when
looking
you-
at 8 positions for the school board. I mean, that's through results of more people coming into town.
So-
Either they're renting or buying.
But Beth is doing a service to make sure we keep the town like we want it, and there's more revenue coming from the grand list, and, it's getting larger.
As a result.
A loaf of bread doesn't
As a
cost the
result-
same
As a
thing
result of
As
what
a
she does
result,
goes to the
and I
assessor and
hate to
then.
be this way.
the
Of course,
really
it's all
do.
trickle
funds
down.
it.
Right.
So Beth,
It
when,
starts
when-
in my office.
yeah,
Of
when
course.
when you're asked to do this, look at fees, whatever, what does that mean to you? How do you actually look at them? Do you go to different surrounding
I
towns?
usually talk to my surrounding towns of comparable
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes-
populations, but at the same time, Bethel's getting to the point where we can't be compared to the surrounding towns, because Bethel's the only town in the area
Sure.
that has the type of growth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
financially, that
But
we're
the-
talking about.
But to say, because another
grand
town
list.
does something, I
It
hate
doesn't mean I
that.
have to do that.
That's not a reason to do
sorry.
something because someone else is doing it. We
They-
have 300,000 in the train station account,
But the
and we wanna
exercise,
raise it.
the exercise isn't to do anything, but to take a survey and see what's going on, and then evaluate whether you're gonna do something or not.
I agree.
I mean, just by saying, oh,
we didn't say
we're never
do
gonna
this.
raise fees again is putting your head in the sand. I
I'm
think
not
we need to
saying
just, no, you're not saying that. I appreciate that, but I think, periodically, we should just look around and then evaluate it. It's not doing anything other than knowing what's going on.
And I have no problem doing that, depending on my schedule and depending on the time that I have to do
Sure.
something like
Sure.
that. I've been doing this for 20
Absolutely,
years
that's
now,
appreciated.
and
Yep.
usually every 5 years or so, when I'm doing changes in regulations or changes in applications, we look at the fees.
Okay,
Okay.
maybe we can somehow get that on the schedule at some point.
Okay.
And You know, don't forget, as the cost of construction goes up, the fees automatically go up, because our permits are based.
That's correct, thank you.
Our permits are based on what the cost of construction is, so 17 years ago, I could build for $90 a square foot, right? Now, you're building, if you're lucky, between 120 to 150 a square foot, and these higher end homes,
That's true.
these guys are paying 200, 250 a square. So there is an escalator in there
Right.
already built into these fees, and the building department's bound by, you know, I can't lie to the building department that says, hey, it's gonna cost me $10,000. Because they have a square
know.
footage, and they just know, and they go, no, this is what it's gonna cost you to do, that's that. So I just wanna make it sound like the fees do go up, it's just with the cost of construction.
Well,
think-
she
I
said
think-
92,000 up to 133 revenue, so obviously, things are going up. But, you know, it still doesn't mean we shouldn't go out and take a look. And-
Absolutely.
and, you know, maybe we're overpriced. I mean,
Well-
there's all kinds of results that come from that.
But part of that extra in fees is the extra building volume that's coming
Absolutely.
into town.
Right.
That- yeah.
Like Beth said, you know, having a sign posted on someone's property so the neighborhood could be more informed and charge the guy $25 seems very reasonable. But to say because Reading is doing something different, I just don't buy it, you know what I mean? But if there's something that we can make that, notify somebody and add a cost to the builder, I'm okay with that, but
Just thinking along his lines, I'm sorry to
sorry?
interrupt, just thinking, and I'm sorry, I'm smiling and giggling. And you may be
I
offended.
get that a lot.
But I'm gonna tell you, there's, you know, I've been here a long time, and there's one permit that we charge $1 for. And that's the tax sale permit. And there's a permit.
Tag sale.
Well,
Which-
yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says,
I mean-
until the day I retire,
That's $1.
it's gonna be $1.
Can't we go to
Because I
99
am-
cents?
Well, you know, Reading's charging $5 now.
how many of those
Does
permits
anybody
you
get
pulled
a
a year?
permit?
About 100.
100, really?
Yeah.
People actually do that?
Oh, don't look at me with those eyes. All I said
I'm
was.
surprised it's so
$6.
high.
I can't believe it. How
Thank
about
you.
dumpster permits?
Well,
How
that-
many people get dumpster?
I don't do dumpsters.
Every time.
But I just
That's
wanted to
building.
end on a
Talk to the
positive
building.
note.
Thanks,
Nice
Beth.
work.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day.
That's it. Good. It's the last night. Good job,
I
thank
have
you.
an actual question. So when you say, because when Robert was saying about checking with other towns, it's kind of different, isn't it, to compare like maybe salaries to, you know, towns that have our population, whatever, because we have a specific kind of growth. And so what towns do you generally look at? Like you said Berlin, or
Well, no,
Berlin, I guess they're saying.
No, I said Berlin,
That-
only
that
because
checking-
they happen to have a sign thing.
And they have a.
A good one that I
and
thought
it's
was
similar
good.
population to us, you said, didn't you?
I
It's a
don't think
similar
It's like
it's-
20,000.
Yeah, she was
Right.
just saying a sign.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying if you were going to look for fee structures, which towns would you check out if you?
I would stay within our area in Fairfield County,
Uh-huh.
because if I went down county and looked in
Oh,
Greenwich
yeah,
and New
yeah.
Canaan, there's no comparison, so
I
what I
understand
try
that.
to
I was
do
just wondering which town to
is
pick out.
compare it to our local.
Like, you'd pick out Richfield or,
I would go to
Brookfield?
Milford, Newtown, Brookfield,
Okay.
Ridgefield,
just curious.
Southbury,
Okay, thanks.
okay?
Thank you. Beth.
Okay, all right, have a good night.
This has Public Works.
Admin, I think it's Public Works Administration. I'm gonna take that one.
What number is that?
230.
Here he comes. All right, now we're gonna get good.
I know we didn't wear any plow edges yet, right?
No.
We're gonna, are you putting stable in the trunks or no?
Yeah.
I started doing that.
Yeah.
All right, good evening. For those who don't know me, I'm Tom Villa. I'm the Public Utilities Director, and I'm also at this point now the Interim Public Works Director. So I'm gonna talk about the account 230, Public Works Administration. In the 2 months that I've been doing some of the public works, I don't really have a whole lot of changes here to make in this account. Things are pretty flat as far as what the expenses are. The staff consists of a director, assistant public works director, an engineering technician, and a office admin, secretary. Some of the expenses, we have an office expense And a dues and education expense, I kept those flat. We have a contracted services account, which is showing as a 1% increase. It's actually a little less than $400 from last year. To me, it was more of a rounding change than, I tend to want to have a round number in there as opposed to an oddball number like 44,637. But so basically, I kept all those expenses flat. The big change in this account is salaries, which is basically, at this point, anticipating a salary increase for staff. But the bigger change is the remainder of the Public Works Director salary, which was going towards water and sewer. Now that there's a Public Utilities Director, the need for the Public Works Director to oversee or to be involved with the water and sewer side of things wasn't necessary. So whereas it used to be about a 20% part of the Public Works Director salary with utilities, now we have all 100% within this account. So when you see a bump in the salary number, that's basically the explanation.
And if I can just say, that happened after we had the referendum last year, after the budget was already set. The Public Utility Commission decided that they didn't want, because Tom was full-time for a year and a half or 2 years, but prior to that, I mean, Doug was still doing some work for the utilities, but then it was like, Tom, you're doing everything. And we're not gonna take an allocation of Doug's salary to the utility department. So that's why you saw the bump.
Yeah, this change could have happened last year at this time.
That's right.
But it didn't. It just rolled through.
Mhm.
And go back to wage contingency, is this
No, that
salary-
wasn't in there. No, because that was a salary that Doug was receiving, call it
Okay.
$100,000,
So we got the actual.
okay? 80 went to the town budget, 20 went to the utility budget,
Yeah.
okay? And we were doing that for a few years. Each year, he would get a 2% increase or whatever it was, okay? So you always stayed with that allocation of 20% going to the utility. And then the commission made a decision, because he really wasn't performing any duties for the utility anymore. Tom was doing everything at that point, all right? At first, when Tom came on, he needed some guidance from Doug, and so we continued to do the allocation. After last year's budget was set, they made a decision that it was over.
Okay. And this shows full year salary, assuming we'll hire somebody
Correct,
by July.
correct.
And then, and maybe this is something that needs to be discussed in an executive session or something, but presumably, the salary that runs through the end of the current year is being recovered somewhere?
Well, it's still in the public utility budget, but you gotta
No,
remember
just-
there was severance in there.
Just on the, I'm sorry, just on the town side. Right,
Correct.
We have 276,100 of salary in the current year ending June 30th of 2020. There's no one in that position.
No, that's the department salaries, not.
That's-
No, I
yeah,
know, but
Tom is
part-
in that position. At this point, he's the interim, he's getting compensated for a piece of it.
Okay.
But you gotta remember, Doug was here up until October, okay? There was a severance and a buyout package to him, and all of that was charged to the director's salary.
In this account.
That's right.
Got it. Thank you.
But Bob, the Public Works Director full salary would still be shown in this line, because, I mean, it's open for hire, because, I mean.
It's in this account, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, it's still in there, it doesn't go away, because they're planning on hiring. The only thing is they can draw from that, maybe if they need to pay him extra until it's filled, or maybe you could, I don't know if they can use it for contracted services at the end of the year, if it's still unfilled and you have to hire people to do what he did, but that salary never goes away on an unfilled position that they're looking for, you still have to hold that line.
But the money's not gonna be paid out, Brian, is my only point. So, I understand that as a placeholder in the budget, but if no one's in the role, and I understand there's lots of missing pieces, so I wasn't looking to put all of them together, I just wanted to understand the concept.
Right.
If nobody's in that position, then that money should fall to the bottom line because those payments won't be made.
If there's
And
anything
let-
left
if
over.
there's
from the
anything
salary.
left over.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
but to your point,
But he
then
used
the
some
extra
of it
30 or
for
40.
For the other-
different
right.
purposes.
I'm not saying we use the entire $100,000, but he was here for
Through
a number
October,
of months.
severance.
And the buy-ins and severance, and then you have the additional compensation to Tom
Yep.
for the dual duties, you know, so, I'm sure it's not gonna be $100,000. But, you know, anything that's excess will drop to the bottom line. Going forward into '21, you still have a salary in there for a public works director.
Understood. My question was, do we expect a windfall for the current year? And I think the answer is maybe a little bit, but not a big windfall.
Correct.
And
I mean,
going forward, depends on placement of the position.
right now, we haven't received any applications.
But a lot also.
And I don't know if it's because we don't even advertise with a salary, you know, and so it can't be that can't be the reason.
Tight labor market.
But it also depends too on contracted services and things like that, because they very well could be over, because the work that, the quote engineer, I mean, they might have to drop some of that salary down, so the overall budget,
Yep.
you know, I see that happen a lot.
It was just in the paper on Sunday that the Danbury Public Works Director makes over $200,000.
And you get a bonus.
Well, the problem is everyone's busy, right?
Yeah.
So guys who have their engineering degrees are doing it on the private
Yeah.
side right now, because
Yeah.
they're making.
Thanks for pointing that out, by the
they're
way,
making-
Rich.
They're making big money.
You'll be hearing that in next negotiation.
You want to revise the salary?
Tom, I remember another motion once before.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go.
I guess, didn't know you were so controversial.
Any questions for Tom?
What is on-call engineering?
It's just a contingency to hire out a consultant, if there's any specialty engineering that might be needed, maybe a structural engineer, maybe an electrical engineer on a particular project. Not my phrase, but it's just in there as on-call.
And is that typically the amount that we've spent?
Yeah,
last
we
year?
kept it flat, we kept it flat from last year.
I mean, the public, their department has come so far. I was in there just last, couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and they were able to pull up the map I was talking about right on the computer, everything, see all the laterals where before we had to wait and pull maps, so, I mean,
And
I just
even-
wanna say you're doing I think you're doing an
Thank
excellent
you.
job.
And even with that, I
It was
think-
really nice to see that.
Thank you. And we still have a little bit, further to go with that, but we're
But it was
one step at a
refreshing,
time.
without a doubt. Thank you.
How much of that 44,000 did they use last year in contracted services?
69,500.
69.
Of the 44.
Yeah. 2017 was 102,000, so it's been going down.
Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Nothing else? Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to do fleet maintenance, or?
Sure. Well,
That's just how it
Want
is.
to go by the numbers?
First of all, I'd like to thank my old man Matt. Good evening, everybody. The list here, try not to go up too much. Contracted salaries, as we've been told through every other person that's come up here, it's just contract role. So it goes up according to how people negotiate. Equipment and supplies, I just went up $500 just from last year, just because of everything's going up. Last year I had in for $36,200, I bumped it up to $36,700. Just, like I said, the price of things going up, my supplies have gone up, just because taxes on this, or debt has gone up a little bit more than what it did last year, which is the new big thing, but they're trying to get rid of that, so let's hope that happens. My maintenance for the highway, it's a 5% increase, or $5,200. Mostly that is because we have a 1992 loader, which we use on the jobs and to mix sand and salt. And since it's 92 and in the element that it's been in, I do need new linkage and lift arms on it. So that cost from John Deere, who will come out and do it all, is $5,200. Hence, my budget went up that much on that. just because of the loader. Which, when the guy first came to look at it, he was wondering if we can still get parts for it, so. And luckily we can. In my police budget, I've increased by 7% or $2,600, and that's because now the new cars that they're buying have called for a different weight oil than which I buy in bulk, and so our new Tahoes and some of the Expeditions require 0.20 weight. So, and then.
Are they trying to standardize the fleet, or are they mixing it still?
No, they're Ford. Ford's just changing the standards on us.
Oh, okay.
And we have one Tahoe, but Ford is also changing the standards. And it's also gonna go up because of tires, because the new Explorers have different tires than the previous Explorers. So, when it comes winter time for snow tires, it costs me $600 for 4 tires on a state bid for police-rated Interceptor or Enforcer tires.
Have you looked at we switched to the Ultra Grip, so we run them all year long and there's snow.
We do, and since they're a soft compound for police tires, because they're speed rated, I get about 30,000 miles out of a set of tires. And like I said, at a state bid, it's close to $600 for 4 Enforcer tires. And we get them from Bellardinelli, which is on a state bid, so there's no price gouging.
How many police vehicles are you maintaining with that budget?
30 or 31.
You have 30
It depends,
vehicles with police
it
department?
depends if one of the vehicles may be going to the fire department, so I'm in that 30 area. With the
you're including
detectives'
the fire
cards.
department. Oh, all right.
No, one car may be going to the fire department, that's
getting
not
rid of
my
one.
responsibility. The fire department, I believe, is buying one of the Explorers, so that probably bring me down to 30. But we have, I believe I have 5 cars in the detective bureau, plus the chief and the captain have a car, and then my cruisers, and we have the SWAT bus.
Wow.
And the municipal officers pickup truck, so there's 30 fleets in just the police fleet.
And Bob, don't we pay insurance to drive these things around, obviously, times 30?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we have 5 detective cars, probably 2 detectives on a time, but we have 5 of them. And now they're asking for another 4 cars, you know what I mean? And they don't wanna get rid of them, they wanna give it to another division in the police department, so you'll have 31 cars next year.
No, but the thing is, like the one car going to the fire department, rather than buying a brand new car, they're taking one of the
Well,
trades.
and that's a good thing to reuse, and I get it, you know,
Yeah,
because there's not gonna be a
But
amount.
some of the cars, I
other-
believe
if they're
some
gonna
of the
get
cars they get
4
rid of too.
On the other 3 cars, I mean, they'll trade those in because of the mileage and the time on the engines.
But what I'm saying is, we're paying 30 times whatever the liability is to have that car on the road. We pay regular insurance, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we got a policy and we have deductible and all that, yeah.
The problem with detective cars, they don't have that much miles on it, right? There's 2 or 3 of them sitting there all the time.
I would like to say they're probably about average. I think the last one we just did an oil change on, because they're not new. I think the last one was a 2015, it had 80,000 on it. So,
Okay.
they are using them.
It seems like a lot of license plates.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My parks maintenance budget is just going up $200 from $3,300 to $3,500 just because of the years of the trucks and stuff. And then most of my repairs come in the summertime when we have the part-timers driving them and accidentally back into the scoreboard or something like that. And I'm like, oh, my tailgate won't open up. Why is that? It was like that when I got in the truck.
Yeah. They have a new app now, they can put it back into something.
Yeah.
That's what they're getting at.
My maintenance for the building maintenance budget's just going up $400, once again, just due to aging. And it was $3,100 last year, it's $3,500 this year, and most of that is because of Ruxby's S10 pickup truck and Smitty's driving an old police car Explorer. And so that's the upkeep on that.
What was that word you said?
Ruxby.
Oh,
Rux. We call him Ruxby.
no, that's fine. I thought it was like some new, like, car.
Part, or,
Yeah,
the new
no.
Rux by Lexus. There you go.
You take care of the bus?
So we do take care of the senior bus.
Oh, let's see.
We do, and Lisa has all the records, we just did an oil change on it because I believe she gets reimbursed by the state for that. So right now, we've really done nothing major to the senior bus.
That's brand
It gets
new.
inspected and oil changes, and I believe we did rear brakes on it.
That's what I was gonna say. I thought there was bricks.
Yeah, I believe we did rear brakes, but, in the annual inspection. But she has all the paperwork that she files with the state, and I believe they get reimbursed a certain amount for some of the repairs.
Well, there's a grant, it's based on a
grant.
grant, so,
Okay.
yeah, we paid $12,000 and then there was, $62,000.
I know, she just, every time we do
Yeah, there's
something,
some
I have to
details.
give her the
Exactly.
records.
The state has to get all that information.
Yeah,
on
so
a
every time we do
periodic
something, the
basis.
state gets
Yeah.
that. So, and then what happens after that is above my pay scale. The administration, vehicles, just $200, and once again, that's just because of oil for synthetic 020, because everybody wants synthetic oils. And the rest of my budget has pretty much stayed the same. Like I said, I tried to keep it as simple and as cost efficient as possible.
The synthetic oil, can you buy that in bulk now? Seeing how we're doing more and more with it?
I'd have to get another tank because of the 1540 and the 530 and my hydraulic and my transmission fluid. I get a good deal from LF Towers because I buy minimum 200 gallons at a time, so that brings the cost down. So if we wanted to do that, I'd have to talk to the vendor about getting another 250-gallon tank and an area to put it in, and then another pump. But we can certainly do that, and I'm pretty sure they'd love to sell me 250
If that's how
gallons.
if that's how the trend is going.
Yeah, no, the
would
more
be-
I buy, the
yeah.
cheaper it is.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm buying my 020 in cases of 5.
Why not 55-gallon barrels? And put them in a corner of the shop.
We've just started using the zero weight, so it's,
Yeah.
you know, as we transition to more vehicles, it'll make it more worth it to.
'Cause you're
Right.
paying for the packaging when you're buying by the.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, but, I mean, it'd be easier, like, for me just to get the 250-gallon tank, because most of them, which we have the big bays if you come there, but then there's a small bay on the side, which we could call a police car bay,
You pump
and
it.
we put that in, and that's where that oil would be, and it'd be easy for me just to grab the hose off the, ceiling and pneumatically pump it in.
How much would a 250 tank and a pump run?
I can get back to you and I can have that
Ballpark.
information.
That's the
I
same
do
thing as
not-
fuel
no
oil
idea.
tanks,
I
right?
do not know. Excuse
The
me?
same thing as a fuel oil tank, right?
No, it's a little thinner because it's not outside in the elements, it's all inside.
Oh.
It's square, and then it basically dispenses the same way, but it's an air system.
And I'm just guessing, but it sounds like it might have like a really short payback. You could just save it. No.
You know, right now, you know, the upfront cost is gonna be pretty high because it's synthetic oil, and by the quart versus a petroleum product, there's a substantial increase in the cost of oil, and we're not using a lot of it right yet.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So
But
250
once the
is a
fleet
lot.
gets bigger, probably by
Right.
next year, it might be worthwhile for us
So-
to get
Something
the
to
bulk
look into.
and do it, but I will get a price on a tank and a pump
Yeah.
that we can have. Yes, ma'am?
It's a non-mechanic question. Obviously, I'm not a mechanic. So my question is, does that oil have any sort of shelf life in any way? And I only know this because I'm not supposed to.
It'll
be
last
buying-
longer than me.
It will. Oh, okay. So we will enjoy that oil long after you're gone.
If I said that, that's not very long.
Well, I'm gonna be 57, so who knows?
Oh,
We're
you're
rolling the
kidding.
dice.
Look, I'm told not to keep the gas in my lawnmower, for a year. I have to take it out, you're not supposed to.
Well, because of the chemicals they add in each of the
Right, so
carburetors
that's
and
what I
stuff.
wanna know.
yeah.
Is there any shelf?
Oil's not like that yet,
Great.
or I haven't been told.
Oh, wow. Ignorance.
Okay, can I just,
You can ask away.
I just texted Steve Pugner. He's saying that, like I said, 30 vehicles in the police fleet makes absolutely no sense. He said they only have 21.
21
So he
patrol?
thinks, no, that's including
Okay.
unmarked, that's including everything.
Okay.
So we must be including the medics and then that.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, because we have
That's-
that's in the police budget.
Why does
I think
everyone
there's-
think people
I-
like the
If
police
he's
have
got
30
21,
vehicles driving around?
that'd be 25. My
Okay.
bad, so I was off by
All right, I
5.
just wanted, because I was like,
Yeah,
wow,
right.
like, that's a lot of cruisers, so,
Wait,
thank
so
you.
what do we have? We have
25, including the medics. So it'd be total for the police, the medics.
21 for the police department,
And
and
there's 4 for the
And
medics.
the rest for the
the
medics.
paramedics and police.
Yes, it's in that budget.
It's 25. All right, I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
so-
They got a
You
lot
can
of
fact check.
Fake news, there's a lot of it out there.
So Ed, I'm impressed there's no salary increase here.
No, there will be, it's just, we have to wait for the, that's why I said
Come on,
the
that
negotiation.
zero was
You know,
so pretty
I know.
there.
It is, but, of course,
That's the wage.
we're waiting for the contract, because that's.
They'll get their
contract
4%.
Yeah.
So-
So Bob, that's the situation. where you see the 0%.
Exactly. But next time it's
Next
gonna,
year, you may see 4%.
And let me tell you, the mechanics are worth every penny that this is gonna go up.
Though, continuing the discussion from earlier, just to ground it, in wage contingency, in Department 420, account 5350, there's going to be whatever you all have guesstimated where the settlement's gonna come out.
Correct.
they're adding it just to make sure they don't get behind.
Yeah.
Well, and
Well, you
to
have
make
to,
sure we're not double
because if we
counting.
have to pay it out, where's it gonna come from?
Exactly.
Well, this, in a way, suggests it's coming out of the current year budget, or at least when we were looking at P and Z.
Well, it's in the wage contingency right now.
Right, but it's also, we'll talk about it later. We got, I'll maybe get together with the audience, and kind of make sure it's not being double counted. I'm sure it's not, but it's,
Trust me.
I do.
Trust me.
Are we gonna make payroll this week?
I think so.
Today was payroll.
My check's been bounced today, I'm good. These three guys are like, I'm out of here.
Check your phone, it's Thursday night, check it.
Everyone looks for the door.
All right. Any more questions for fleet maintenance? No. Thank you very much.
You've been wonderful.
Come back
We're all
next
night,
week.
every day at the Limelight Lounge. All right,
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Take care.
240.
240, highway department.
Highway
yeah.
Department.
Hello, everybody.
Missed my bear.
I presume everybody here knows me, Bob Dibble. I just got back from China this morning from a
Yeah,
trade
I
fair.
feel all right.
I don't know if it's hot in here, but it feels like for me. Has anybody got any questions over the budget?
Oh, no, I see a beautiful sweat forming.
It's too late now.
Your
Now we're all
brow.
infected and we're quarantined, so we're here all day.
Shut the
14
doors.
days.
All together.
We're gonna go into this. We can really get this budget done today.
He's a bad man. He's a bad
All right, so the highway department,
man. Dig in.
obviously, we don't have any increase in the salary account, right? Okay.
Yeah.
207 account, which is our maintenance account, that's all the supplies and that we buy to do our repairs and so on and so forth during the year. That's flat, it's up $1,000 from last year. The snow, ice, and sand is there's no increase there. Snow, ice, and salt, there's no increase there. And if anybody's got any questions, just, yell, please, okay?
Bobby, the maintenance, is that like storm drains, covers and stuff like that? Is that the?
Everything in that all the stuff in that 207 account is minus what we actually do for, if we're gonna rebuild a road, say we're gonna repave a road, reconstruct a road, the cost of the structures on that specific road are in the 404 account, but this buys me a patch, catch basin
If
tops.
you need to
for
change a
repairs.
top or something, that comes out of this
Our signs, our gutter brooms, our cutting edges,
account? Oh, okay.
shovels, so on and so forth, everything is within that account, okay? The sand account there's no increase there, the salt account.
How's your supply now?
Is gonna be any leftover for next year?
Ooh, we're only in it's February still.
March is the biggest
everybody.
month coming.
March is coming, and
I
I
know.
think, I think business might pick up a little.
The big freeze.
I think he's playing with you, Paul.
No, just close up shop, that's.
No, we're fine right now. Basically, so far I've purchased just a little more than half of my salt, 600 ton. All right, and our sand, I have a 200 ton salt pile that's not mixed with sand yet. And then we bought 1,200 yards of sand. That's about a third of our sand so far that we've purchased. So, right now we're in pretty good shape. The building is mostly full. Okay, so if we get another, I purchase the salt, if we get another storm, we'll get another.
You're contracted out, ready for what you need,
Oh, absolutely.
so
Yeah.
there might be a
Well,
residual.
I know you're an old New England guy, and you think you need to have sand on the road also.
Oh, here
Are
we
we
go.
ever gonna stop at the sand, like all the other towns, and just go 100% salt?
No, no.
Oh, my God.
Well,
There's a whole, yeah, I mean,
The
We need the
turtles.
ecology speech.
The turtles, the salamanders.
forget the turtles.
No, he
We-
waxes poetic about the wildlife.
That's the worst thing ever.
I think what's gonna happen, there's a lot of issues that are coming up with chloride pollution, all right? There's a lot of stuff that's, within the next year or two, I think, not just operational, but legislatively also, that's gonna be coming around. I'm not sure what's gonna happen, right now, we have no well contamination in Bethel, okay? and the sand is there to provide a certain purpose.
Traction, I get it.
Traction, meals the snow up, lets us get a hold of it, so, and it allows us to keep our salt usage down, all right? You know, and I talked about this last year, about the sand and the salt. You know, one of the issues is again, and I keep harping on it, is the chloride pollution that's been going on, not, you know, in surrounding towns. I think within the next year or so, you're really gonna see that start to flare up. And
But
people are
why?
gonna try to have to figure out what to do and cut back on their salt use.
But the silt, you know, all the silt going into the wetlands is just as
You know,
bad as the silt
I'll
also.
tell you something, you know.
And then
it-
sweeping
right,
all
and
year long?
Right, and yes, and let me just talk about that for 1 second. What we do is we constantly check the sand that we bring in, and what we do is we fill a mason jar up halfway with sand, fill it up the rest of it with water, shake it up and let it settle out. And what Nick is talking about, the silts and the fines, those are what cause turbidity in the streams, causes your muddy looking, you know, Mississippi River looking streams. The actual silts that we get in our sand that we purchase is probably in like the 3 or 4% range. It's pretty minimal. You'd be pretty surprised how much
There's a lot
silt.
of stone in your stuff, right?
We have a lot of stone in our sand, so that gets rid of, that cuts back, and that's a very important issue, is to cut back on the turbidity. So we're very careful when we bring our sand up. If we, and we test constantly, we don't pay to do it, I just do it myself.
You know, right.
I know what I'm, you know.
Yeah.
And if we see any changes in that, we get a hold of our vendor, we make sure we have the corrective action to take care of that. So, that,
Well, to your point, Ridgefield's looking at reducing their salt. They're actually looking at, some guy up north has some beet thing, but the chlorides are becoming an issue, and they need to find a way to reduce the salts on the road. The chlorides are a huge issue, like Brookfield, some of
Right.
the wells up there, there's issues.
You think the towns
because
are
of
gonna
the
have
amount
to,
of-
other towns are gonna have to swing the other way again?
I think that's probably what's gonna happen.
Some sort of like,
There's
he would know, some sort of beet juice.
There's
like-
a million different
Yeah, yeah,
speeds.
yeah.
Some organic way of
Beet juice.
melting stuff.
Beet juice.
Well, the beet,
Cars will be red.
no matter what you
Better than
do,
the frame rotting, you know?
right, no matter what you do, at the end of the game is the chlorides are what does the work. The beet juice isn't what there to do the work. The beet juice is just there to coat the salt particle to make it a little sticky, so it
And
doesn't
adhesion
bounce
to
off
the
the
ice,
side,
right?
so it
So they're
adheres to the
still
road better.
using
It doesn't,
chlorides.
it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't, there's a million different
Right.
types of whatever else.
All I was saying is I do know Ridgefield's trying
Right,
to.
so a lot of people are looking at
committee
all kinds
trying
of
to
different
reduce-
things.
So you wanna
reduce
keep
the
using sand,
chlorides.
cause you feel it's gonna swing the other way on the other towns, like
It's an
Brookfield.
ecological
is heavy.
problem.
Right.
I'm sorry, Paul?
It's an ecological problem, desalination, you know, your wells, just like what Bob says, we're fortunate that we don't have salt in our wells. Up north, Massachusetts is fighting to something fierce because all of their ponds and wells, they're salty already.
Right.
All I gotta do is go back to the Midwest where I came from originally. You know, we used to do, in Detroit, for instance, just plain salt. Guess what? The cars lasted 2 years and that was it. The rest rotted away. You saw cars with frames suddenly collapse in the middle.
Right.
Well,
But
the
then
new
it's
stuff the
not-
highway's using is no better, you know.
Well,
great
the
quality.
So-
magne- the
That's all
magnesium
different.
chloride.
Right,
You
so
think
what-
the sand is important.
Right, so what's
Keep using
what's
it.
going on around us, just, you know, I mean, if you guys really wanna have that conversation, that's for another night maybe.
Right.
Okay, and if you wanna do that, I have no issue, but the towns and the state DOTs, you know, in Connecticut, New York, and the towns around us, their application rate of salt is a lot higher than what we put out per mile of road per application, okay? And then on top of that, to make matters worse, their frequency of application is a lot higher than our frequency of application. They scrape salt, go back to the beginning, scrape salt, and go back to the beginning, where we don't operate on
You
it.
let it soak, right?
We let things work, you know, there's a certain way we do things, and that's really to avoid, like, you know, like he was saying, up north of here, Massachusetts, especially New Hampshire, there's a huge problem in private parking lots with the salt usage because of liability issues. You know, the person who owns the parking lot doesn't want to pay the insurance and be responsible for it, so they put it on the contractor to do it. Well, you can go to, you know, any parking lot in Bethel nowadays, and it's just covered in salt, right?
They're pre-salting now.
They're, you know, and then, right, and the parking lots are covered in salt. Now, New Hampshire's had a huge problem with that, and how they're getting through that problem is through the state legislature. The contractors, the commercial contractors are being certified as salt applicators, okay?
As a green contractor.
As a green contractor, right? And what that provides them through the legislatures, they're provided with no loss of liability if there's an issue that crops up in the parking lot. So it's a big benefit, and now the contractors can cut back on what they're doing up there. Because the majority of the problems up there are not generated from the DOTs, they're generated from private contractors.
Slip and falls.
Right, exactly.
They're just over applying.
And the legislature now has changed, if, you know, if these
Because of the
contractors.
liability.
Right,
Right.
so if the
It's all
contractors.
liability
No, that's the
insurance.
slip and
Yeah.
fall,
Right.
somebody slip, falls.
They're overdoing it now because they're being sued in the courts.
Right, so they're,
That's a whole different
they're
issue.
be given a break, as long as they're certified, to cut back in salt usage. And then by statute, they can't be sued, so on and so forth. And it's been kind of successful, and it is working this way, thankfully, so. Okay?
So sand, you believe, is still important?
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you, the sand is a pain in my butt,
Yeah.
right? It's just something I have to deal with, you know, and a lot of people say, oh, you know, you put out 3,000 yards of sand this year, or whatever that number is, and we gotta sweep up three. That's not necessarily the case. More than 50% of that sand goes off behind the gutter when you're plowing snow. So really, we're not picking up that amount of sand. It's not as much as you think it was. Most of the sand is cast off off the side of the road, so.
Depends how fast you go. and
Depends how well-
How far it gets spread out on your
Again, it's
lawn.
I
March.
sweep mine back into the storm
So,
drain. in the spring.
well, you know, it's March, so the last storm of the season we call agriculture plowing, so we just clean it up. Throw it in.
Okay.
Curbs look okay so far.
All right, so, any more questions on sand and salt?
Thank
You know,
you.
again, like I said, you know, if there's any questions on any of this stuff that comes up later on, you know where to find me.
Thank you.
The snow and ice contracted, that's the same. My contracted services, I just went down a little bit. You know, we got a new sweeper. We're doing pretty well with it.
Does a nice job.
It does a nice,
Saying
that thing works awesome.
In comparison to the old one.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the other one, you know, you had 20 switches on the dash that you had to flip every switch every time you wanted to change direction. This thing here, all you gotta do is change, you know, the pedal that makes it go forward or backwards.
But the first pass
Move the
really
pedal,
looks good.
it's
Let me know in it's 5
Fantastic.
years down the road.
I hope, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of computer
Well,
control on it.
That was the
but
idea, is to save.
Yeah, it's a nice machine.
It's, yeah, I mean, time-wise, it's been incredible, you know. The road construction,
This is what I've been waiting for.
I think you have my road list
Yeah.
on,
You attached it.
all right? So you have that, right? So let me just,
A list of roads, actually?
This is why last year I didn't think it was a great idea to take money out of the highway, the road construction, because, you know, the idea is to get away from bonding out for road repair. And already we've seen that, so you think that, is that accurate, like 200 and whatever, 73,000?
973,000?
Well, that, what I'm saying, up, the increase.
Yes,
Went up to it.
right. So
Right.
basically, last year when I came in, I said I need
I know.
$927,000, whatever that number was,
And I
right?
was happy to give it to
And,
you.
and, you know, that number is, you know, and I tried to break this down, explain it as simple as I can, it's a division of how many years we
Yep.
need to get through all our roads, so on and so forth, and keep things in good shape. You know, the town's made a huge investment and we've reconstructed and rebuilt a lot of roads in this town. You know, and it's like putting a really good paint job on your house, you just wanna make sure you keep putting a decent paint job on a house. So that's what that number represents, okay?
Sure.
That 973,000. That's where I wanna be, you know, I mean, that's my thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was but part of an ongoing
Right,
trend to try
exactly.
to fund that
And what'll
account rather
that,
than.
and right, and the
Bonding out.
goal of that, long time down the road, after I'm gone, everybody else, whatever, is, you know, we're not setting the house on fire every 7, 8, 10 years or whatever it is, and then there's a big huge report, oh my God, we're gonna dump a huge amount of cash into the roads. We just keep on this even,
Right.
Steven
That's the idea.
trajectory. And the only increase that shows up in here is if asphalt went up 2.5% or 3% or something like that. So that was the goal of that. We're at that point with our roads where we should be able to just be able to maintain.
So is that number a projection, or is that based on what you have for, cost?
That's exact,
That's
that
exactly
list
what
of
it is.
roads
Yeah.
you have, that's the exact cost of it.
There's no major ripping apart like we did.
No.
Basically, it's mostly surface and.
Yeah, all the heavy lifting has been done, for the most part. We have onesies and twosies, you know, and I talk in square yards, right? So a mile of road is 15,000 square yards. We have, you know, an 8,000 square yard reclamation job here, or, you know, a 9,000 square yard one over there, right? But most of this work is transitioning back.
I wanna say the
to-
last 7 years, we've done about over 50% of the roads already.
It hasn't been that much, but over the
Past 10 years?
10 years.
Yeah, a little, yeah, 10.
10 years.
We've been doing reconstruction for almost 20 years.
Yeah, but
But we really picked the pace up.
when we picked the pace up, I remember we were at 30%.
Yeah, we were doing 1.2s, 1.3s each year, something like that, you know. So basically where we are, you know, we got 86 miles of roads, and we've reconstructed, well, I think we're at 54 miles right now.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, a lot of those mileage is between 55 and the 86 are roads that were built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Where it was an engineered road. There's the correct gravel underneath, the correct base on it, so on and so forth. So those roads don't have to be reconstructed. You know, we don't have to reconstruct every road in town. That would be, you know, foolish, you know, financially wise. So, you know, we're at the point now where the maintenance overlays have to go on those roads, and we have to continue doing roads that didn't get the reconstruction work. You know, some milling work, not much, but mostly just overlays.
That was my question. It's mostly overlays.
It's
and not-
mostly
and not
overlays.
milling.
So, right, exactly. So what I can say about that is, you know, a milling job on a mile of road, 15,000 squares is almost, is $28,000 to $30,000, right? So one of the things that I seen coming up quite a while, you know, several years ago, was the millings that got taken off the road then were free to be hauled away. Now that's changing. And now there's coming in, they're gonna start charging per ton of millings that goes in the truck to be as haul off, right? So that same road that today is, you know, close to $30,000, I would bet by the end of next year or the following year, you can add another $15,000 to that cost, all right, which is haul off of the millings.
Why is that,
So-
Bobby? Why is that changing?
There's a glug of
No
mills,
one wants it.
nobody wants it, nobody
Yeah.
can get, you know, it's just,
You've been using some of it,
Right.
haven't you?
do this.
Can you reuse any of
The
it?
milling.
Well, you don't
We-
need a ton of it.
We don't need that
Right.
kind of quantities,
Right.
right?
Quantity.
Right,
You
so,
might
you know, a
use
mile of
some.
road, we'll probably take, you know, 800, 900 tons of millings off of that road, and there's a huge glug of it, because that's
Yeah.
predominantly what everybody does, right? So, just to put things into context, that 54 miles of roads that we did, how we set those roads up when we reconstructed them, they can get an overlay on them now, over the next, you know, 15 years if we wanted to see each one of those roads, right? And then they can get another overlay on top of them again, without doing any surface work. Because we reduce the elevation of the road to allow to get overlays on these roads without having to go through the milling cost. So that number will add up, you know.
And also the asphalt, the price has been going up, I would assume.
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad. It's been, you know, 3s and 4%
Okay.
increases. You know, it hasn't been too bad.
Was there an issue of quality for a while?
It
Oh,
is.
yeah,
It's bad.
yeah.
Was
There's
that-
a bunch of issues going on.
There's a couple of grades of,
Yeah, I mean, there's issues going on, and we're working on addressing them through,
Tilcon?
no, we're working on addressing them through UConn, which they have a lab up there that they do asphalt design. And they're kind of like, you know, Consumer Reports type thing, you know, they're independent. You know, and we've done some core testing on some of the roads and some of the issues that I've been pointing out. And we're right at the start of that, because the failures some of these failures that we're having are in the surface course. And we gotta figure out why. They'll come in and look at the road, and I'll say, I have this issue, and they say, that's expected wear on the road, but not in my book it is. You know, in my book, that road, I should be seeing that either A, at all, or B, several years past what they're saying is an acceptable surface on the road.
Bobby, aren't they taking the good stuff out of it? The government's not letting them put all the petroleums in? I mean, isn't that the root of the problem?
Part of the problem is, you know, the petroleum product, the petroleum that goes, the liquid that they use to produce the asphalt with is a petroleum product, right? When our economy is really good and everybody's out driving a car and burning gas, right, because we're at the bottom of the food chain of that, in that refinery, what's left to come out of the refinery is the more people are driving on the road and gas use is high, gas prices are high, the worse the quality is of the oil that we use to produce our asphalt with. It's just a known fact. It's been like that forever. So they try to overcome those issues by putting different additives in the oils, which is questionable at this point. So
Making the asphalt weaker.
So you're not saying it's the government doing it, or this is just a matter of an economic situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, these are private companies, they're paving companies, I mean, they want, you know, their cost per ton to produce versus install, that's where they make their money.
Right.
No, but you don't have too much of a choice, you have just Tilcon, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a small fish in a pretty big pond, but, you know, I do put the effort in and be a pain in the, you know.
So, Bobby, I have a question. The
Come on,
road-
Brian's had his hand up.
Oh,
He
I'm
was being
sorry,
dirty.
nobody else was,
But
they were just firing him off, so.
my question, Bob, is, do we have any left in capital from any of the road projects that we did, or did we expend it all?
The original, there's nothing left.
So there's nothing, okay.
Wendy, did you have something?
My turn.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the roads that were included in your current budget, were you able to accomplish all those that list, or do you still have more roads
Last
to-
year's budget, or?
No, the budget that we're in right now, the current year.
Current year.
Yes.
You've done all that were on there, I mean, except for my road, cause that got bumped again, but that's okay.
Well,
That's, you have it in the upcoming, no, the current year, so every road that you projected to do
Mhm.
in the current budget,
Mhm.
you accomplished this past summer.
Yes, minus BT squared, which was only 45,000. So, and there's ways we accomplish that, through a lot of savings, operationally. So, you know, the value you're getting for the dollars that you give us, you know, your return is pretty high. You know, you're probably getting a 15% or 18% return on the money you give us each year to just take care of the roads.
I'm not sure what that means.
Getting a good deal.
Well,
By who?
for example,
By
we
the
do, you know, we
town?
do all the work in-house, you know, we
Oh,
do all
right.
the structure work in-house and all
Not
that
paying
stuff.
other
Right,
contractors.
we're not,
And not contracting out, so there's, you know, there's a lot of value in
Got
that
it.
versus what, you know,
You get more done for the same dollar.
exactly, way more.
Bobby, I like to say, you know, I've been in town a long time, and you built a nice road.
Thanks, we do, we're very proud of our roads.
There's a lot into it, you know what I mean, and people don't
Yeah.
realize it, they just think you grind it up and you throw asphalt down. Bobby takes a lot of time with packing it, making sure the crown of the road is right, the drainage is right, and he's doing a good job.
When you do an
What?
overlay, was that at two inches?
It depends on the base condition, all right? Generally, it's an inch and a half overlay,
Okay.
and if circumstances dictate, we'll put a 2-inch overlay on the road.
So
Compacted,
when
right?
you mill a road, then you are taking it down so it can
We'll remove
hold
an inch and a half.
3 to 4 inches?
No, we'll
For the
remove-
next 2 cycles of overlay?
Yeah, I mean, when we're
Because
doing.
you said you can do 2 overlays after you've milled. the
That's
road.
after a full reconstruction. We turned the road back to dirt, we
Mhm.
regraded
Oh,
the
okay.
road, reset the crowns, did all
I
the
gotcha.
drainage. You know, we removed some of that material off of the road, we bring it back to our yard, we screen it out, clean it up, get it ready for the next road, fill, whatever, so we're never buying material,
Mhm.
right? And then that road, yes, the elevation of that road is reduced enough so I can get 2 more overlays on top.
I gotcha.
And you're not paying for milling, so, you know, and that's 45 years down the road, you know, from today, so.
We'll talk after that.
You'll be here.
I gotta go.
Just
We'll
something,
get you a new truck.
There's a farm with his name on it.
just something the PUC has been looking at, because we're putting new water mains in down streets, rather than redo some permanent paving on our ditches, we might be looking into helping the town side out, rather than doing the permanent paving. Allot that amount of money where we would cover the ditch again, pay you to do the rest of the road, or supplement.
Sure,
you
okay.
doing the rest of the road. That's something we've talked about.
Yeah, we've
so.
talked back and forth about,
Oh.
so we gotta sit down and, you know,
Yeah.
look at numbers, so.
But it's something to get
You know-
whole roads done.
Yep. Highways, anybody have any more?
I have a couple questions about
Okay.
it. And it really has to do with the capital plan. Like last year, we talked about beginning to do with your heavy equipment. road-
Oh, okay, did you wanna do that, all the capital at once, or?
Yeah, well,
Not buy it, no, we're
just for your stuff, right?
Okay.
What we see is 114 for a lowboy.
Lowboy, yep.
195 for the big truck, the
Yep.
Class 8.
Yep.
18.5 for road saw resistance,
So, yeah,
48. Used 50,
horsepower mowing tractor, yeah.
okay, and 175 for
Codfish
codfish.
and culvert, yeah.
Has that codfish culvert been on this list for a long
It
time?
It's been like 10
For a
years.
long
It's
time.
been
Been here.
It's been on here for a while.
A
right?
long
So-
time.
So now that we're on that right now, let me update you on everything on that, right? So we did put an RFP out, and we hired we hired an engineering firm to draw up the plan set, so on and so forth, to get that project done. One of the issues with that project, and believe me, this is a very simple, it's a box culvert, in my perspective, it's a very simple job. But the area that it encompasses is exceeded 200 acres, okay? And once it exceeds 200 acres, that clicks a whole different set of rules in play with deep, okay? So the box culvert job itself now has to have a coffer-dam installed and a bypass pipe installed in it while the project goes on, okay? So that changes the scope of the project. So right now, we're up to where we refusal test the road on both sides of the existing pipe, which means we drill down and we see how deep hard ground is, and we can tell what's underneath there, so, I don't come back here and say, geez, we ran into mud and we gotta, I need another 400 grand, right? So we have all that information, and now, right now, we're putting a plan set together for the project to put it out to bid. And that's what that $175,000 is for. The other money that was in the budget was 40.
40 and 35, I think.
So our engineering was like 38.
Prior years.
Right.
Yeah.
So that 175 plus the 40 is basically that 175 will take us over the top to get the project done, to complete the whole thing.
Okay. And I've been on this board for 4+ years. Brian, Cynthia, you've been on it longer. This has been on it every year.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're getting to the point where we're gonna actually.
Oh, yeah.
But Bob, does it need to be on that capital? It's not like a piece of equipment we're gonna buy. It's something you're building, basically, right? Shouldn't it be in something else?
Well, that's the question that we'll have to go through, Nick, right? I personally.
You touched on a dollar amount.
Well, and I think of these things as, an ongoing expense. We don't know what culvert we're gonna have to do in a particular year, but we know we may have to do some culvert, or we may have to do something. So that, to me, means you put it in the current budget for capital non-recurring, versus, when it's a school building, a police station, that's bonded.
But I understand why he puts it in capital, because, again, you'd have such fluctuations in budgets each year, one
Right.
year.
Don't look inflated, yeah.
Yeah, it would look really inflated, say, well, wait a minute, you put this in my budget, it really, it's just kind of
Yeah,
more
I mean, these are
accounting, correct
specialty
me if I'm
projects, they
wrong,
don't
it's a
occur all the
capital.
time.
It's just not a Mack truck to me, but it's the best place to put it, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not an
He'll-
operating
yeah.
expense,
I guess,
really.
right.
But Bob and the other department heads will say, look, this is what we need, and then it comes up, so we say, yep, you're the experts, we get it, and then it's up for us
If
to
you put it
figure out
on
how to
here,
pay
it would
for
jump off the page next year.
Right, but if you're bonding a truck for $195,000 or $114,000, that lasts 20 years, the box culvert is gonna last 50 years, so you get more for your buck for the 50-year.
Right.
Right. But you can't do a bonding for, I don't know, what they tell us, 10 million is like the lowest you can get for a real efficient execution out of bonding, so maybe.
You're not gonna go past 30. 30 is the max for even a school.
Well, I was talking 10 million in issue price. So Bob, last year, again, we talked about trying to do for your fleet what we've been doing on the road construction, kind of,
Yeah, yeah.
slowly and methodically replace it.
Right.
I take it, like last year, a lowboy, the Class 8, those are the things you need to keep your
Yeah.
fleet.
Yeah, because, the big truck is, that's a 25-year-old Ford, I mean, the truck has done its thing, I mean.
The only reason why I'm asking is last year we got, I think, some material about the age of the fleet. We just didn't
Yeah.
have it this year, so I'd find it helpful to hear it's the same thing. We still have this 25-year-old
5-year-old,
average
yeah,
life fleet.
yeah.
We
You're
got-
replacing that with a Peterbilt aluminum body?
Yeah, 348 Peterbilt, that's exactly what's replacing it, so, we have,
That's gonna, you're basically going towards a total Peterbilt fleet.
absolutely, yeah.
And how's the maintenance on them things in comparison?
They've been really good, I mean, we had,
I know you had the Fords, you had the Sterling has been always a problem.
The Sterling is a parts problem, with not a chassis problem, not an engine, transmission, rear end frame problem. It's because, Sterling didn't last very long, and they were, and by how they went out of business, their bankruptcy terms where they didn't need to produce parts for the most part. For only a few years, So, we make do, the cabs are fiberglass, the doors are fiberglass, you're out plowing snow, branches are hitting the drivers with the passenger door truck, it's breaking it, we own Bondo, fiberglass, it is what it is. We understand. But the Peterbilt's been very good, we haven't had any issues with it. Yeah, I mean,
It's relatively new, right, for you, 5 years, 6 years?
the first Peterbilt that I bought was in
4 years ago.
2010.
2010, so 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think we're done then with 240.
Okay. Building maintenance?
Okay, well, I just do building.
Sure.
Sure. Who's gonna do transfer station, Bob, is that you and Brad? Or these guys do transfer station too?
Oh, yeah, I guess.
You're up, so why don't we'll.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on transfer, I'm sorry.
No, let's do building
Which one are we
maintenance.
doing?
Building maintenance. 260.
They're just how they're turning up my pile there.
260.
Most of building maintenance is the same as it was last year, right? My 207 account, which is building maintenance, and also I have a 207 account, which is the same as like the highway department, and that's for our materials and supplies to maintain the buildings that the employees use, door locks, lumber, paint, the whole, glass supplies, roof repairs, the whole, everything is in that, just like in the highway department, right? And that 157.8, 158.8, everybody on,
Yeah, what duct cleaning are you doing?
At the
Are
garage.
you responsible for?
all the town buildings,
I'm sorry?
all the town buildings,
All the town buildings,
yeah.
not the schools, but the
The
town.
town buildings,
I got
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Bobby, quick question, last year and the year before, we were talking about repairing your highway garage, the base of it. Has that been completed with steel? Because
Yes.
it was rotting away.
Yeah, we poured new concrete piers in there, and then we put an I-beam in between. We cut the section out where the I-beam was rotted, so
Yeah.
now it's sitting on top of a concrete pier that's up off the ground.
Okay.
And then there's a short section of I-beam that's married to the
So
existing
the
I-beam
the
above.
building is secure now?
The building is secure with the exception of the roof, so,
Okay,
yeah, but that work's been done.
all right.
That's a tin roof?
Yeah.
So I have a question, anytime I see 0% now in the salary, I have to ask, is that?
It's the same,
Same deal.
it's all public works.
Yeah, that's what I
it's the
mean,
same,
so,
yeah.
it could change next year to should reflect something that.
You know what's coming.
Now, I do have a question with contracted services in general.
Mhm.
What sparks someone to try to get a better price on something? Like how much does it have to go up before? And is there always something else available or something else to maybe look at?
We basically renegotiate all the contracted service accounts or vendors each year,
Mm-hmm.
right?
But if one shows a big increase,
Right?
do you shop around and?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what triggers
Absolutely.
that? Like how much would it have to go up? Just curious.
It's,
And does it depend on the vendor maybe?
if I have a vendor that was operating, that was providing a service at X amount of dollars
Mhm.
this year, and next year, that X amount of dollars was, say, an increase of, because I'm cheap, more than 5% or something like that,
Yeah,
we're gonna get on the phone.
yeah.
And, the first one we're gonna ask is, hey, what's going on? Or,
Yeah, I was
make
just
sure
wondering,
they have a
because it says
legitimate.
4%, and this could be different multiple vendors that just went up slightly? Different vendors?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're talking about the contracted services
Yeah,
account?
I jumped down there.
Okay, all right.
But it actually says It looks to me like it went up 20%.
Correct.
And it looks like it's accountable to the police station?
Correct.
So what's going on over there?
Well, the police station, because it's a new building, we have, all the building systems, so if you want me to run through this real quick, we have a fire alarm contract, all right, we have refuse, elevator service contract, emergency generator service contract, a fire sprinkler system contract, carpet cleaning, the floor stripping, cleaning of the building.
So this is every year stuff?
This is every year
This is every
stuff,
year
right,
stuff.
yeah, this isn't just once,
Wow.
this is every year, okay? Automatic door service contract, a roof maintenance contract,
We're seeing costs.
HVAC, and a boiler and furnace maintenance contract. And that's what that represents, that's the increase, that's what it represents.
Oh, right, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, that's,
And Bob, when I try to puzzle the numbers together, the footnote that we have is that the police department accounts for 80,600 of contracted services. The balance went up 53, so something else went down by.
No, we seeded, we put, last year we put 27 in that budget because the PD was coming off warranty in end of September.
So you
Because we
got
needed to
20.
cover what we needed to get from last year, end of September to July.
You got 27 in there, and now you're just going up to the 80.
Right.
That's, everything else has stayed the same.
Yes,
It's
everything
really
else
a-
stays the same.
It's the 53 more for the police station.
Right.
Get to the 80, got it. Thank you.
Bob, what is roughly the cleaning contract for the?
Cleaning contract for a new PD is $48,000.
48,000, so
What was the
that,
question, I'm sorry?
that,
Cleaning contract.
Oh, the cleaning contract, 48 for that?
yeah,
clean that building?
so, yeah, I mean, that's the
That's a
major
big chunk,
one, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the lion's share of your contracted,
Nobody talks. Is that every night cleaning or once a week cleaning? What do they do?
7 days a week.
Versus probably using 28.
There's more in there too, right, Bob? Because the total's 174,500 for cleaning.
That's all of our buildings, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the 48,
So the
plus that, yeah. There's a lot of systems in that new PD.
Yeah, the sprinkler
Yeah.
system and there's a
Yeah,
lot.
everything. I mean, the old police station had none of that in there.
How much does cleaning the town buildings account for your contracted services?
Total is 174,000.
170, and that's for town hall?
Town hall, the library, train station, they pay out of theirs, but the town hall, the library, public works garage, the PD.
Firehouse, anything at the
What about the
firehouse?
firehouses, are they?
The firehouses. I mean, there's quite a bit of square footage out there that gets cleaned, so.
I missed one, Bob, I'm sorry. Town hall, library, police department, fire department.
Public works garage.
Public works garage, thank you.
Just the offices, not the whole.
Yeah.
Dog pound?
Is that one company?
Dog
Is that
Oh,
one
it's a
company?
town building.
Is that one vendor that we use, or do we use different vendors?
All one vendor,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Did you want the list of vendors that we use for contract?
No, I was just curious about the cleaning, because that's a big contract, and
Yeah.
I would assume you get a better price if you use the same vendor, right?
It's all the same
For
vendor,
building.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're getting a better
Oh,
price
yeah,
per building,
yeah.
because you're using the same vendor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions for Bob on building maintenance?
Good. Tree one, we go back up to tree one?
No.
270.
Who's doing transfer station?
Wow,
I'll do it. I'll do it with mine later on.
Okay, what else do you
before
have, Bob? You're a tree warden?
I have tree warden.
All right, tree warden. Department 270.
270.
Okay, so the tree warden account, is everybody?
Just what number is it, Bobby, I'm sorry?
270.
270.
270? Thank you.
So account 270 is tree warden, pretty self-explanatory. Now, we've had an increase, we increased in our contracted services up to 120,000, that's 33%. So basically what's going on around town is the ash trees have the emerald ash borer in them. I'm sure you've heard it somewhere, somehow, what have you, right? So we've identified 30-plus trees that have this ash borer in it. And how you can, and if you wanna check on this, it's kind of neat to do, but the ash trees have a very dark, the cadmium on the bark, the outer bark on the ash trees is like a dark gray. And when the ash borers start in the top of the tree, they work their way down through, and the woodpeckers come, and they'll strip the outer layer of the cadmium off of the tree. And it's called blinding off of the ash trees, right? So the ash tree will have this very light-looking bark all over it, and that's how you identify where the emerald ash borers are in the trees. So 2 years ago, we found one ash tree up on Dimar Road, and we took that one down. We had a few other ones up there, no big deal, and all of a sudden, and this has really flared up in like December of last year, early January, we were able to see a lot of trees, ash trees being blinded off, okay? So here's how we approach this. Excuse me. All of our mature ash trees succumbed from a blight that started about 25 years ago, so we don't have any ash trees that are 4 feet around by 100 feet tall. The only ash trees that survive the blight are immature trees. They're 12, 18 inches and maybe 40 feet high around Sunset Hill, Codfish, Wolf Pits, that area is predominantly where they are. So the cost to take down those trees, we can get maybe a couple of them done a day, right? At a couple $1,000s, so I think we can probably make a pretty good run at what's out there. The problem with the difference between the ash borer and the blight took 4 or 5 years for the tree to get to the point where it's really gonna start falling on the ground. The ash borer is, like a year, if that, and the tree is ready to fall on the ground. They come down pretty quickly from them, so. We really kinda have to get after this. So one of the things that I do is Eversource is doing a lot of work in town with, Lewis Tree Company, trimming around the power lines. So I let them go through an area, right? And if there's ash trees in there with the blight on, I'm like, hey, it's near the power, so we go behind them. So let them go out and spend the money first, and then.
You're saying they're taking some of the wood out of the top of it, and then you're coming in?
They've been actually taking some of the ash trees that are within their power
Close
line.
enough, yeah.
They've been taking the whole tree down. So instead of me going first and doing it, let them go through it, Eversource pays for it, we follow them around, so. And that will probably save quite a bit, not at that 120,000, but, that keeps them at that 120,000, or 150, 160,000, so.
We have 130, is that what you're saying? 130, right?
120.
120.
130 is the total, 120 is the contracted services.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I just have the total here.
You got the salary and you got, mileage expense.
How would you say that again?
I must be.
The total for that account is 130,400, and the contracted services of it is 120,000.
Oh, on my sheet, I only had 100 on the.
That's what threw me.
We got 110.
It was increased this morning,
Oh, that was
20,000,
next year's.
Tom was looking at it.
Yeah, the papers don't.
Well, no, that's what
They
they
increased it
handed
today.
me,
Oh, today.
you guys got. from
Yeah.
the
Sorry.
budget. So it was increased to 130.
Okay, so that's, all right, so,
This is different. from
that's
the
120?
which is
Oh.
different from the
120 is
expenses,
the
so-
contracted services.
all right, so your contracted services is going up
Computer
30,000.
said
Correct.
kind of get big now. Yeah.
That's a 33%. It's account number
So it's
5313.
130,
What's the total?
And the total,
120 and
please?
that is
130,400. 130,400.
Bobby, in a perfect world, if money were
Same tree warden?
unlimited, would you say that we would need more money in this account? I mean, how, overall, what's the shape of?
That's a really good question, we're doing, the only money that we have just enough money to do is to take down trees that are dead or in danger of falling, right? We're not doing any trimming, we're not doing any preventive maintenance, we're not doing any of those things, okay? And that's, that's a big number, and it's a lot of tree work, Fortunately, I've been able to have Eversource and have Lewis been in the town and doing a lot of work, which we don't, I mean, yeah, we pay through the power, our electric bill, but, you know, it's been a pretty big savings. We've been doing pretty good that way. You know, and I remember years ago, you know, 20 years ago, I come in here and I came in with a newspaper clipping from what happened in Brookfield, because they had a tree fall on a family in a van, and, you know, I think it was, what, it was like an $10 or $12 million lawsuit. I said, you can do a lot of tree work for $10 or $12 million to solve a lot of your problems, instead of just paying out that money and not solving any problems, so. I would like to do more trimming work. I would like to do more
Like the
preventive stuff, you know? Because a lot of times you can get into a tree and start taking some of the disease out of the tree, save the tree, instead of letting it just sit there, and then 4 years from now, instead of doing $300 worth of work, you know, 4 years later, you've got a $3,000 takedown, you know?
Mhm.
Any questions on tree warden? Good?
Well, building maintenance capital.
Sure. Yeah.
Building maintenance capital.
Well, it's, 260 is building maintenance, but do we have?
Capital's on, I think, a different.
Oh, it's just on the sheet.
Yeah.
On the capital sheet?
So Bob, you got, when I look at it, it looks like 30,000 for the
Animal control, we started animal control, yep, okay.
Muni Center HVAC, 47.5.
Yep.
Muni Center boiler, 82.
It's in the
Muni Center oil tank, 25.
Mhm.
Do we still use oil here? in
I
these
thought we
houses?
took that thing out.
We took it out.
We did take the tank out.
The tank is out.
It looks like that.
The boilers are dual, all right, so here, let me just run back up to the top one, just go through this real quick, okay? So the animal control facility, there's $30,000 in there. That's money that I need above what we have currently budgeted to complete the repairs on the dog pound.
How much was that amount, Bob?
30,000?
Are there, I'm
well-
sorry, are there any other copies of that, or online at all, the capital?
We left ours home.
Yeah, my dog ate it.
We're at the dog pound now.
What did you have in the account?
I had,
before?
$27,900.
27.9.
And then to complete all the work down there, I need another 30.
Because originally it was 60, right? It was budgeted
Yes,
60,
right.
or 68.
Yeah, but we
Using
used,
the foundation, steel on the side?
no, all I'm gonna do is put up a steel, see, what we have to do, animal control is regulated, through Deep Department of Agriculture, so what we need to do is provide a place for Stephen to back the pickup truck in, close the garage door, get the dog out of the van, and then into the pound. We don't have that now, so we're gonna put up basically an old style, just, you know, farmer's steel garage on a paved pad, and then connect a door into the building, remove the old brick built, the block building's falling off the back of the thing,
Right.
a little bit of pavement on the parking lot there to get a driveway into it, and that's it.
It's different than what we do.
Well, the other project was a lot more money that they were talking
Yeah.
about. This is,
Yeah, the contractors of government IQ, I think it's, government IQ, it's like a cog, like a council of governments bidding process we can use. And that's how we're gonna.
We bought the fire truck through an organization like that out
Right,
of Texas.
correct.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like a state bid.
Yeah.
Because they do all the vetting ahead of time.
Right, exactly. So there's several of these different, and, you know, this is a majority, where we purchase the majority of our stuff, you know, catch basin types, pipe, sand, whatever, salt.
Someone
is-
negotiated a price and now you're buying it.
Right, so we use, either Connecticut has Department of Administrative Services, and we buy material off of there, or the COGS, the Council of Governments, have these government IQ things, or the federal government also has big buying power through the Department of Agriculture, that's where we buy our big heavy equipment from, at a really good discount. So anyway, on to the next thing, is Municipal Center HVAC repairs, all right?
Is that over on this building or
This-
the other side?
It's this section of the building, the oldest section of the building over here, okay? So we have to change some condensers, and we have to change some of the line sets, right? Because The units in here now are run on R22 refrigerant, okay, and that stuff's $100 a pound if you can find, you gotta buy it in some back alley somewhere now, right?
Yeah.
So we gotta convert to,
Do you know which alley?
we gotta convert to it's called
410
410, 410, right, and that stuff's like $6 or $7 a pound versus 100, so it's really worth it to get when you're, these things are 25, 27 years old, I think, these units in here or something.
25, 27. yeah.
Right?
Are they rooftops? They're rooftops? The units are on the roof?
Yeah, some of them are, yeah. Downstairs, we have one old boiler left that we need to replace out with a high-efficiency boiler, dual fuel.
Well, you don't need dual anymore.
Well, we kinda do, and I'm gonna get to that, okay? Now, the next line down is municipal center oil tank, that's $25,000, that's a 550-gallon oil tank, a day tank that we're gonna put on the ground out here. And we're gonna do that simply because the building is a shelter.
Dual fuel.
Right. So if for some reason we lose the gas grid, at least we can get burners go, we can file the
burner
burners.
that we replace, isn't that just gas?
They're dual.
There's one gas burner down there
Down there
now,
now.
and there's one
Yeah.
combo now
Right.
down there.
And we're
There's
gonna
two boilers
Yeah,
down
I
there.
know.
Yeah, we're gonna replace the old gas one with a high-efficiency dual fuel.
So I think the point you're trying to make, like in a natural disaster, when the gas company
'Cause
shuts everything
sit
down,
down,
we
we can-
still need the ability
Right.
to give people heat or hot water, so that's why for emergency management, you would use
Right,
the dual
exactly.
fuel.
And that'll be an above-ground tank.
Right. That's 550 gallons.
Yep.
And I take it about that's a heavier gauge, right, of 25 grand than what we were talking about with fleet maintenance, because that
Oh,
was
yeah,
gonna be a.
totally.
Yeah, no, it's a dual wall
Double
tank.
wall tank.
It's- Yeah.
Yeah, or it's in a concrete
So
wall or
he-
whatever.
Right,
We're not
He
gonna
comes
put
back
salt
to
out there,
us.
right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just split it at the bottom.
When he comes back to us, he's gonna tell us the price for that tank is a heck of a lot less than 200, than
Oh, yeah.
25.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The tanks that he was referring to were basically they're basically real
Couple
thin-walled, square, like, picture a beer keg out of thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
There's
yeah,
generally
no,
a stainless
yeah.
steel tank.
Yeah, there's no-
They generally, it's got a
Yeah.
plastic liner in them, and
Right,
a
right.
stainless steel
So,
shell.
does anybody have any questions on what we're going through so far?
Bob, I just have one question, clarification for the dog, animal control facility. So the total was 68 or something like that, right? But you only used a portion of that last year, is that correct, or did you use the whole?
We haven't used any of that yet.
You haven't used any of it?
We got to the end of the construction season last year, and through the IQ bid process, there was some stuff that got left out because we weren't sure how we were gonna fund it. So we decided to transfer the project into this year, right, and then start all over again.
So nothing was
So
done.
everything is funded, we can get the whole thing done A to Z.
So you have 27, you said, and you need this 30, which
Right,
is
that's complete the
67.
project.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
And just, have we actually funded that, or, I know we had 65,000 identified as possibly coming out of capital non-recurring.
In 2013, 30,000 was approved
Right.
for the animal shelter that has not been spent.
2013.
2013, so yes, it's been a while since that, and that's still out there.
All right, and so you take that 30 plus your 27.5, and you're not,
I thought that we had
7,500 less.
We'll make
approved,
that work.
I thought that we had approved like 60,000 for this, for the dog pound or the animal facility a few years ago.
I think it was last year, I think it was 2 years
2
in a
years
row,
ago.
it was on the capital plan.
Right.
And last year, I think we had put money in capital non-recurring for it, but it never got done, I was hearing.
But it sounds like, Brad, there is actually 30,000 out there already allocated to that?
Yeah, it was on March 12th, 2012, $30,000 was approved from capital non-recurring.
So why would we need to put 60 more in?
No, 30.
No, 30.
Oh, right, but I mean, I thought that the total was 60 that we approved for capital non-recurring.
Last year, the board voted to move it off the capital plan to a potential capital non-recurring, and it was never brought back in front of the board to fund it from capital non-recurring.
Okay, but it was 60,000.
It was like
65.
67.
Well, whatever. So the
Yeah.
30,000, that was approved in 2013.
I think they changed the scope of the project
Yeah,
when they
right.
looked at it more.
Yeah, the scope of the project had changed because there was gonna be a lot more work done in that building this is more a temporary fix for 10 years or so to get us by and to see what we're gonna do with the dog pound. We might maybe go in
Okay.
partners with
No, I understand.
Danbury
Yeah.
or, Dawes or
Right.
somebody else.
We're back on that. Are we
So
sharing it with Reading right now or not? And is
Reading's
Reading
using
giving
ours.
us some money for this? Per dog?
I don't,
$10 a
I
day?
really don't know whether if Reading's doing this.
Reading is using ours.
So are
I
we
don't
getting,
know.
I don't think we get anything from Reading for that.
it's a
Okay,
pretty good deal for Reading.
so, to
Sure.
ask my question, maybe it sounds simplistic, but if 30,000, where did that 30,000 go that was approved in 2013?
It's never been spent. It's sitting in
Right.
capital non-recurring.
So wouldn't, right, so wouldn't you say that we would approve 30,000 more?
That's what he's asking for.
Yes.
That's what it's asking.
Okay, 'cause
35
I just remember like us, a couple years
That's
ago,
us
putting 60,000 into somewhere for the
Yeah.
dog.
It was never voted, it was never brought to vote to approve the money.
I gotcha.
So
Right.
it's, there's not another 65,000 sitting out there.
Right, I got it.
So.
Thank you.
Brad, I'm a little slow. The capital recurring, is it real money in a bank account or we
Yes.
just didn't borrow it?
No, it's capital non-recurring is money in an account.
It's an account.
It's in the bank.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
We beat the dog. We're good.
Yeah, it sure did. The last item I got on there is a 1.5-ton 4x4 pickup truck with utility body. That's to replace a 1997 building maintenance vehicle. That truck, these trucks can purchase through Office of State of Connecticut bid, DAS pricing. Basically, the truck is 20% off, window, sticker, and if I put the purchase of utility body from the dealer, that's also, anything we put on the truck is also reduced by 20%.
Is that for maintenance?
And this would be for building maintenance?
Building maintenance,
department?
yeah. It's a replacement of 1997 Chevy S10, Ruxby. Remember that?
Smitty's truck or something? The little black S10 or something? That's what's
No,
replaced?
we replaced that with one of the old paramedic vehicles.
And you need that big of a truck for building maintenance, 1.5 tons? I mean, what is that, an F?
The premise behind that is there's really not a lot of price difference on an
Savings.
XL package, say F-150 and F-250, right? So what I do is I purchase an F-250 with a snowplow package on it. I don't necessarily buy the snowplow from it and hedge my bets, but if I have something happen with any of my low boys in the highway department and I need a truck, I can get a snowplow put on that truck and go down the road with it, so. And the pricing difference is really nothing.
No, it's just a couple elements, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Mechanics garage doors.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry, yeah.
You know, where's this?
At the fleet maintenance, down at the Public Works garage.
Yeah.
That we need to replace both of those garage doors, the motors, the whole thing. They've been in there, geez, I don't know.
Day one problem.
I've worked here 30-something years, and there's.
Those are door and motors and
The electric motors, they're a big door. They're
Yeah.
a 14 by 12 door. They've been there forever. So, we just replaced all the doors in the highway department side of it, right? And I'm gonna be honest with you, we had mechanical doors on chain lifts in the garage, and the amount of money we were spending on repairing those doors every year, it was out of control. I mean, by putting electric doors in here, and we're not spending any money on repairs. The same thing with the mechanics garage, where all of a sudden, in the past 4 or 5 years, it's been, the repair frequency's getting more and more and more. Well, we gotta come down there and keep repairing the doors, so it's time to replace them.
These are two doors?
2 doors.
Two whole setups?
Yep.
So this is separate from the carbon monoxide
Exactly.
system that we did.
Yes.
And I don't remember how many years
Right.
ago we did that.
Well, it was just finished like last year, I think, or the year before, but.
Here before.
Right, but that makes me wonder, I remember distinctly that they had to wait until the highway garage roof was repaired before they installed the carbon monoxide filter. But then here we go with, the garage roof has been put out to next budget, so what's that all about?
We're working our way through that. I mean, Tom's put quite a bit of effort into that.
Just kind of getting involved with it, we need to do a design. We've really got to come up with with
Right,
a,
but
with a
what we
real
were
design.
told from the delay, like from Doug Art, and I know he's, rest in peace, but, just that was the thing that was holding up the project, was waiting for the roof to be repaired. Is that the?
I don't know.
What was it, the carbon
You're
dioxide
right.
was a collection system for the exhaust or something?
Yeah, what it
That
was.
had nothing to do with the roof.
No.
Right.
No,
Well,
I
it
don't-
did in the sense that it was, I guess, some sort of leakage or whatever that they had to, do you remember that, Brian?
Something about it.
Yeah, I mean, the roof was leaking in the garage, and
Right.
we made some of those repairs. What it was doing was leaking around, when we put the new gas furnaces in down there, we had oil burners in the roof, and where the exhaust stack went through the roof was rotted around there, so we removed the exhaust stack, patched that all up.
Okay, so that's the
That's patched
repairs that
in.
you're talking about to do
Right.
the carbon.
You were worried about damaging the new system in there, and that's why you hung
Okay,
up on the
I
roof.
just wanna clarify that, because this is a whole replacement, right?
They still need to do the roof.
I understand, I get it.
This is a
And it
totally
needs some
different
structural work before we
Yeah,
get to
we're on
the
the other
point
side
of
of it.
knowing how to do
I
the
haven't had
roof.
the
Really?
pleasure of
'Cause
touring
the
on the
roof-
garage, so perhaps I'll.
The loading on a roof is about at its limit.
I hate
And then we added additional conduits, I guess, with the solar system.
Yep.
So we've got to look at the trusses and the way that whole thing is configured, and that goes back to that on-call engineering sometimes.
It's not a pole barn, it's a metal building, right?
It's a
Yeah.
metal building,
Yeah,
but
it was-
the roof
I
fabric,
guess.
the metal fabric is attached right to the trusses.
Okay.
And we've got to beef up the trusses or provide some additional support for the trusses. And that's what we're in the middle of, looking at a couple of different alternatives.
Because
So-
everything that's on the roof right now,
Right.
or hanging.
So you really can't repair the roof or replace the roof until we get the structure in, under it squared away.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It's a Borghese bar joist building, I mean, it was put up in 1970, I mean, those things are just put up to hold, it's a bar joist system, it's made to carry a skin roof on top of it and a certain snow load, and that's it.
Did you shovel those a few years ago, or you left it on there? You didn't want to get up there?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, thank
All right, everybody,
All right.
back to China.
Yeah. Get on that cruise ship
Yeah, let's appreciate
and lick all the donuts.
I know, they're doing a
it.
good
I'll
job.
afford your paperwork, let me know.
Registrar of voters.
Gotta do
Oh, yay.
transfer station.
The registrar of
Bob
voters.
was gonna do it.
Thank you very much.
All right, everybody.
Oh.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob.
Bob, he's gonna do it when he
When you
does
take those
the,
extra trees down,
other stuff.
it is.
Okay, yeah.
Would it be burned or? No changes. Wood could be burned.
But it can't be taken
What was
out.
the, bets in the morning? The over-under was
Yeah,
90
you
minutes.
can't take firewood across state lines.
But even if you stored it on your property, those boards might get into other trees. I like,
Right now, they're just an ash.
just cream, no sugar.
Nothing else.
I'm sorry, say
So
again.
far.
Just cream, no sugar.
What's that, Bob? What?
The ash boards, they haven't been in any other tree, any other species. What they don't think that would happen.
Yeah, I got one ash list on the whole pond.
Right, so it's not-
I mean,
it's all.
100 trees are probably cut down. I got one left. Yeah, the one was like 4 feet in diameter, I mean, it was a biggie,
Oh, yeah.
the last one that took down.
Yeah, it's a shame it happened, but.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, we're not Bob.
Tim, you're up.
Nancy Ryan, Tim Beagle, your registrars of voters.
I don't know how much.
Thanks for the opportunity
Yeah.
to go over our budget with you. Should be quick unless you have lots of questions. So, after 5 years of no increases, actually decreases, we do have a bit of an increase this year. This fiscal year that we're planning has the presidential election in it. So we're gonna have a lot of work to do and a lot of people to hire.
Primaries.
Well, the primary.
The primaries are in the current year.
Well,
That's
the
April.
one, so April primaries in the current year, which we're gonna go over that a little bit too. The August primary, which we don't know whether we'll have one or not, we know definitely that we're gonna have a primary in both a Republican and a Democrat primary in April, presidential preference primary. All the other offices will be in August, and that'll be in this next. So we've planned for one referendum, which will be next year, a primary possibly in April, and then the November election. I looked quickly back at our 2016 payroll, which was like over $15,000, so it was 15,500. We hired close to 80 people to work in all the different parts of that November election. We had a 80%, almost 85% turnout, so we had a very large turnout. It could be larger this year, so we want to be prepared for that. So there is an increase because of that. We did make a little switcheroo, which I don't know if you noticed. We have something that we have to do every year called Canvas, and it's something we're doing right now. It's between January and May, and then kind of continues on through the summer, where we check the voting list, and there's a number of different ways they recommend to do it. We've become very efficient at it, and we've actually saved money over the years. And not using an outside vendor, we used to send a list out to a vendor who printed a bunch of postcards that got sent out, and hopefully they mailed back saying, yes, we still live here, or no, we don't anymore.
And then that was about a $6,000 bill.
Yeah.
And then we decided, well, we could do this in-house. And so, and I was kind of intrigued and questioned the same thing when we heard Bob say, oh, you're getting great return on this. And I said, what do you mean? And then when he explained it, I said, well, that's what we're doing with the Canvas, that we brought it in-house, and we're kind of doing it in-house for thousands less than we did.
Like the same thing, mailing and everything, like you.
Oh, yeah, we're doing a mail merge, and we're using the town's equipment
Yeah.
for folding
Tim,
and stamping
Brian
and all
has a
that.
question.
Brian has a
Tim,
question.
When I read your notes, I saw a $4,200 increase in salary, but when you look in the budget here, it doesn't come out to 4,200, it's actually under 2,000, I mean, you're looking.
Right, so that's where I was going with the whole Canvas part.
Mhm.
So the Canvas includes, it did include at the time having this mailing done by an outside vendor. Now we use the stuffing machine, and I think the only people that use it are tax collectors, so we use that too. We send the mailing out. For some reason, our predecessors had a separate line for paying for that. Instead of it being in the salary, it was like
But you
a
guys,
payroll
You know,
thing.
it's expensive.
So-
maybe I misread your notes.
Yeah.
Notes I read, and I'll pull them back up, said there was a $4,200 increase in the salary line.
Right, so what we did was we took this line that used to be a separate payment to us and our deputies to do the canvas, and put it in the salary, because it's actually a thing that
I
happens
understand,
every
but the
year.
math doesn't
So
add
it's,
up.
right, so it's $1,600 that got taken out of office expense, put in the salary, because it's something we now have to do every year. So why have it be an extra payment?
It used to be an
So
office
then-
expense, and
Yeah,
now
as
it's
part of our-
salary.
as-
So now it's in the salary.
I get that.
And as
We
part of our
also-
original request, we had requested an increase, and according to charter, the Board of Finance is supposed to set the salaries for the registrars during the budget season prior to the election. You know, the registrars are on the
So the-
ballot in November.
So the increase isn't 4,200 as it states in, I'm not talking about in this,
Right,
you gave a budget presentation notes.
Yes.
right,
In those notes, it said that you were requesting a $4,200 increase.
Right.
And you explained that the deputy salary was gonna go up, the
Right.
registers were.
right.
But your salary
So-
line here,
Yes.
it's only showing 1,600.
Right.
So
So
that's all I'm
16
asking for is an
Yes.
explanation.
So
So,
the
as we were
16
talking tonight, you know,
Yes.
there are other departments have zeros, and it's moved to contingency.
Wage
And so the
contingency.
finance department did that. They took our request, moved it over to contingency. So in any event, during the budget season, the Board of Finance sets the
So
salary.
that salary line could go up above that 1,600 by 4,200.
No, by 2,600.
By 26,
Yes.
whatever, yeah.
So it's a total of
So
22,
there could be
42.
another $2,600, so that explains the
Right.
discrepancy
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
Right now, the 2,600 is again sitting in wage contingency.
Yeah.
You just moved
Because
over.
that's an amount, they're elected officials, their salary has to be approved separately from the budget.
So it's like an unsettled.
But during the budget process.
Right.
The charter provides that the Board of Finance sets the salary right for the 5 folks, town clerk, first select, registrars, and treasurer. So I think what the
Bob
plan.
says it's in.
Yeah, I said
It's
so.
like- okay.
First selects,
Okay.
Yeah.
registrar.
So it's already budgeted for, is my
It's
question
in.
basically, and
And then
Bob
we-
answered that, we have the 4,200 covered.
After the budget process, we'll address the town clerk
Salary.
question, the registrar voter question,
And just watch the charter. The charter says those salaries have to be set during the budget process.
Yeah,
So
we had to do that before.
it's,
Yeah.
you know, we're not worried about going to a public hearing and people saying we make too much money.
Yeah,
So,
that'll
you know,
happen.
Oh my God. But that 1,600 from the canvas is in
No, I
this,
understand.
what you see.
Yep.
It's the 2,600 that's in the wage
Mhm.
contingency.
That was just my only question.
That you don't see.
but you know, going back to some of our earlier comments too, even with that requested $2,600 salary increase for 4 people, not each, spread out among 4 people, that would bring our total request to basically what was approved for fiscal year 2015. So through the years, we've cut back. Now we're coming back saying it's a presidential year, we're gonna need more money, but we're still, would be going back to 2015.
So that's everything for 2021, fiscal year 2021, at least are for our requests. And if you have any questions, we can entertain those. But we were gonna give you a heads up that since we now have one extra referendum coming up, the March 10th water tank referendum, which we don't think will be terribly costly, but we still have to be prepared for it, that will probably put us over budget for this year, for this coming fiscal year.
And we're
That's
projecting that over budget might be about $5,000.
First time, well, we went over when we first started, it was part of us and part our predecessors, but there were 4 budget referendums that year. We had a special election, a regular election, and 2 primaries, and so that happens. Stuff happens.
Okay.
Any questions, problems, difficulties?
No.
Yep.
You never
Thank you for all that you do.
All right, thank
You
you.
guys are great,
Thank
I like
you.
you.
All right.
And I do apologize that we
Oh, wait.
didn't move you before
Yeah, I mean,
all the public
No,
work.
You could have been like
I
a
know, but
drive-through.
still.
Well, it said 8 o'clock, so I figured, well, I'll get here about 1:15, that'll be
Yeah.
plenty of time, that's
Well,
fine,
you
no problem. And we'll leave you to whatever else you have to do.
And we're big fans of Bob Dibble too. so.
Who doesn't love
So
Dibble?
Oh,
I mean, how
That's
could
it,
not?
how can you not, you're right.
What one person can accurately predict snowfall every time.
So he's got a divining rod in his
Yeah.
head.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're on.
So Bob, I think that leaves for us Department 245, Transfer Station,
Yep.
and Department 405, Intra-Government Agencies.
Yep, yep.
All right.
All right. I'll do the transfer station first. There's no changes in it. It's exactly the same as last year. The revenue is a little shy of the total expenses, maybe about 20,000 or so, and there's, we're thinking about raising the price from 25 cents a pound to 30 cents a pound to make up that difference at this point. But it is a service that you gotta provide, you know, so, you know, it is what it is at this point.
And again, I'm not saying I have a ton of experience in this, but I do deal with dumpsters and transfer stations all the time. You know, what I've found is that the higher the amount goes per pound and per ton, the less people use
That's
it.
right.
Because, you know, Ridgefield's actually now selling out-of-town permits, where you can buy an out-of-town permit and bring. Yeah, they sell out-of-town permits. And you know, last time I was at Ridgefield, I think it was like 100 something, 110 maybe. No, 110 a ton to dump. That's to dump.
Wow.
So
We're not set up to take that much.
No, I understand they're not, but my point is that a lot of these towns are competing now because they have contracts with Wheelabrator and they have all these contracts. So raising the fees may actually have the opposite effect.
Well, right now, we have no permit fees.
Yeah,
in
there's
place.
no permit fees.
Well, it's
No,
not
no,
permit
no,
fees,
I'm
but it's a
talking-
price per
I'm-
pound.
Right,
He's talking
right,
about.
right, what I'm saying is the price per pound.
Yeah.
I understand
Can
that,
actually
yeah.
push people, and it does, it pushes them to other places.
Yeah, but they got rid of the permit fee, so it dropped the, you know, it.
And we're
if
still
you did the
shy
math,
about
it's like-
$25,000 or so. So if we can pick up
Well, if the
part of
average.
that, and the poundage.
The average family, that you average a ton per family is how they figure it out. So I guess you would just have to see what the raise, you know, you're really talking about 5 cents a pound into 2,000 pounds. What's that come out to, $100 a year for the average family? Bless you.
Bless you.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying, when you think
Yeah, I
about it,
Yeah.
it sounds like it's not, you know.
I was on that committee when we went through all this.
Have we seen any data on that, you know, because we're not charging the permit fees versus the.
The pounds pickup, basically.
Pounds pickup, did we make up any of that?
I can check, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I
Interesting to see.
think what you're gonna find is that it did temporarily spike it, and then now people, you know, if you raise that again, I think it's gonna just go back, you know.
There was a point,
To
again, my
less
garbage
traffic.
gets picked up $30 a month, so why would I pay $28 to bring the stuff down? You know what I mean, so
Yeah.
now if we
Well, you
raise
don't wanna
it.
deal with pennies, so that's why you go from 25 to 30 cents.
Okay,
I mean, to deal with 27 cents a pound, now all of
It's
a
not
sudden
gonna
we gotta
break.
deal with pennies.
the guy's still gonna come, you say?
But Bob, we don't have to guarantee any tonnage
No.
to, so by charging.
Well,
Oh, wait,
well,
yeah, we do
we
too.
do, we do.
Oh, you
have to-
doing that?
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
have
But
to.
we're probably.
On recyclables or on trash too?
On trash,
Yeah.
on
I think
trash,
it's on both.
and then on, on recyclables too. We have to guarantee so
A
much.
certain poundage, yeah, I remember
Right,
that.
that's our contract.
Otherwise we're
But
penalized then.
Our costs are pretty much fixed as far as, for a couple of years. We got a good deal from HRRA.
Who's the tonnage?
And, I'll make a note of that, and we'll get you some more information on that.
I'd be interested.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
You know, this thing has been kind of running in the red
It always
Forever.
has.
forever.
Oh, big
Well,
time.
the
Well,
rate in the
they
past
kinda
was
balance
totally
out.
different, and that was wrong, I think.
Agreed.
Say
Now
that
it's
again?
closed, and the other part of this account, Mike, the senior man there, he retired December 31st. So, not that there's a really big difference in the salary, but there's a difference.
Right. Yeah.
Between the new guy coming in and Mike as a senior, public works worker.
Yeah.
So, you're gonna see a little savings that way too.
My only point is it's been running in the red for a long, long time. But it's just not something that rises to the level of being a top priority.
Yeah.
And so it's just,
It's more of a service to.
we almost waste our time
You can
talking
recall,
about it.
when we sat on that committee,
Yep.
that there are some things in the future that warrants, really, from my perspective, a slight increase for tonnage. One, that old truck, I cannot believe that,
It's
this is
still
like a
running.
1990 Chevrolet with springs sitting, that you have to sit to drive the thing. The refuse containers are rotting out, okay? Eventually we have to face the fact that, it's.
Either we're gonna do this or we're not gonna do it, basically. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty much what it is.
exactly. And the smartest thing we ever did was not to go to single stream. Because right now, they don't want us to go to single stream because you can sell cardboard, you can sell glass separately.
Some of the things still got baggage.
That's the reason why you have a separate glass container right now.
Remind me, do we have to have that transfer station? I know we have the permit, but as a town, do we need to, does every town have a transfer station?
No.
I
No,
think
we
we
don't.
have to have a
We do it.
recycling center.
Yes, you're right. You have to give them a dumpster.
A place.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's something that if you give up, you'll never get it back.
You never get that permit back,
Yeah.
right? Right.
And you
Rich,
just
have
run
you
it.
guys ever thought about, and I know you've been involved in utilities and all that forever, if you privatize that and moving the employees to town highway, like taking those,
Yeah.
I'm not saying eliminate positions, but what I'm saying is you could beef up your highway department and have one of the companies come in and.
Yeah, they
There's
looked
been
at privatizing
discussions.
it,
We
but
talked about
then
it.
to privatize it, it has to become a bigger operation, and the town really doesn't want it to become a bigger transfer station. The kind of the mom and pop type thing. Private companies really can't make it a go without bringing
Volume of demolition.
volume of stuff in.
We looked at that several years ago.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, twice we've looked at it. Both companies basically want to start bringing in
Demolition.
materials that's from demolition, okay? They want to put a railroad siding in there. people were just upset about the fact that suddenly we're gonna have trucks all over the place. Then we had the other
Similar to
issue.
Worcester Street.
The other
The
issue was
situation.
the bridge itself, okay? So, you have to go around that thing. There was just too much flack about it to go into
I remember.
privatizing.
So we're gonna hold about 20 grand, that's all it is?
Some of it 25,000, depends on year and
And we're
the
providing
amount of
service.
debris that you bring in and what you gotta pay for it.
How is the free table doing? I hear that's really big down.
Well,
Yeah.
that is a social
Well-
activity for many people to go to the
I hear
transfer
it's big.
station.
I've never been down here.
Well, it's the recycling center, and, to get rid of the mattress, they can drop mattress off, there's no charge for that, so, it's a
Electronics,
service.
there's no charge.
Electronics, so it's a service to the community.
Electronics is no charge. We make a little bit of money on scrap
scrap.
iron or anything in metals in general, okay? Cardboard at one time was golden, but
Come down
today
a
it's
lot.
just about break even.
Yeah, that's the same thing with the glass and stuff, there's no market for
It's
it.
too
All
much
that
to
stuff
produce.
used to go to China, and
Yeah.
China said.
Shipping
"You
costs
keep
now
it."
doesn't pay.
All right.
All right.
Okay, Don,
405.
transfer station, 405.
405 is the dues we pay to, well, first of all, 3 different organizations that represent us in Hartford. CCM, Connecticut Council of Municipalities, COST, which is the Connecticut Council of Small Towns, and then you also have the Council of Elected Officials. Those dues, they are exactly the same as it was last year and the year before. And then you have Hart Bus and Sweetheart Bus. And we get assessed based on the volume of users. So Hart is going from 49,048 to 50,020. And the Sweetheart Bus service is going from 85,122 to 87,870. Also in this account, you got the Memorial Day parade and activities, and that's $40,000. And then there's a Veterans Assistance Program that we were assessed from the veterans out of Danbury for 3 hours.
You mean
40,000?
4,000.
Not 40, for the.
4,000.
Yeah, you said 4.
Okay.
Fireworks this year?
Yeah, it's like carnival or.
Quarter after nine.
So take it out.
Okay.
4,000 for Memorial Day. And then the Veterans Association is $350. All right. Civic improvements, there's a number of accounts that make that up, and that's at $3,400. And what they are is, there's a contribution made to the Bethel Voluntary Fire Department, Stony Hill, the Bethel Women's Club, the Chamber of Commerce, Christmas decorations, and discretionary contributions during the year. It's a contingency account. That'll total $3,400. Before I get into the paramedic service, Northwest Communication, which is the 911 dispatch service, that's going from $7,500 to $8,119, an increase of $619. Just got that in actually today. So it's not on the paper sheets, you'll see 7,500, because I didn't have that number when we originally put the budget together, and it just came in, like I said, today.
What's the new number again?
8,119,
It's in the open gov file.
and that's for the 911 dispatch service. And so the paramedic intercept program, we have it at, the current year at $270,000, it's going to $300,000, and there's a couple of reasons why that's going up. I was informed by Matt Casavecchia out of Danbury Hospital that in the year 21, we're gonna need another car, a new car. The current number 3 car has 81,000 miles on it, so by the time we get to next spring, that car is probably gonna be closer to 100 or more. So we're gonna have to move that out of service and bring number 2 to 3 and 1 to 2, and then that'll be the number 1 car.
Are we getting any money from Reading on?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
they
do.
do pay. They pay based on the call volume.
Percentage.
So at the end of the year, what I do is I look at total calls, how many go to Reading, how many are in Bethel, and then it runs about 22%, and they pay us for the use of the vehicles, the leases on them, or the purchase cost of the vehicles, and any equipment that goes into the cars, gas, oil, things like that. so we get reimbursed for that.
That's
Is this a
something that
paid, I'm sorry.
is new, because we didn't get that for a while.
We just started getting it like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this a pay-to-play thing again, like the insurance companies are paying for the bus trip, or, you know, the paramedic service? You know, that, I remember
This
this,
is above and beyond.
is like Medicare or paying, you know, for the paramedic service? Is there
Yeah,
revenue
You
coming
get
in?
2 levels of service. You got the basic life support and advanced life support. So the medic, the medic is, not the medic, but the paramedic is on the vehicles that meet, depending on the protocol.
Right.
If somebody's having a heart attack, he's
Yeah,
going out.
then he's
If he
going.
cut his finger, he's not gonna go
Of
out.
course.
Okay? And then if he's gotta go on the wagon to the hospital, then all of a sudden, the level of service goes up, and we get a piece from the insurance company through the fire departments.
This
So-
is above and beyond what we get reimbursed.
So we're 300,000 after the reimbursement?
That, well, the
Well,
three
I know
hundred
you can't
thousand,
project it.
the 300,000 is an amount that we allocate to the fund. Then we have additional monies that come in from the Bethel Volunteer Fire Department and also Stony Hill Volunteer.
What do they
So-
charge, 500 an ambulance ride or something like that? You get basic.
Maybe not that high, but it's well over 400,000. Yeah. We pay 32,000 roughly a month to Danbury Hospital for them to supply.
No, I mean, what do we charge? Because I know when you go to the hospital in an ambulance, the fire department sends
400
you a
something,
bill
that's right.
for the ambulance ride.
What do we get?
So
There's a-
does that go back to the general fund, or does it go to?
I think that's-
No, again, that revenue I include in the calculation of the mill rate. So if I'm saying
So
we're
it goes
gonna,
back to the general, as long as I'm saying it goes back to the town.
well, it's going to the town, yeah, but it's adjusting the mill rate. Yeah,
Not the
so,
paramedic. The paramedics.
no, the paramedic, I'm sorry, it's a separate service. It's
Right,
not
the
going to
ambulance,
gen-
the ambulance service, if they get $200 for the bus ride, it goes into their ambulance service as a private
And
company.
they give us an amount, depending on the type of service it is. We get for the advanced life support, they keep the basic life support.
Okay. The paramedic they're two separate things.
We have the paramedic service as a separate, almost like an enterprise fund on the balance sheet.
And Bob,
So
is
if we're-
it right that it's run in the red pretty consistently? We've tried to up it.
Yeah, it's close, but we've moved up, this was 190,000 probably 7 years ago, and now we're up to about 300,000.
And will 300 cause this to break even, close to break even?
Close to break even, because there's another item that increases that 30,000, we need a new life pack. It's almost like, yeah, but it's a more advanced version. I mean, it does EKGs and everything else. And there's 2 of them, and one of them is old, so we gotta replace that in the year 2021. So, but those items, 20% of it's gonna be reimbursed by Reading, so. the
So
cost-
how much did we get this year we're working on, do we get from insurance companies as revenue back into that to pay? the
Well,
bill?
what we got from, Brad can tell you, he'll look it up, but the checks that we get in from the volunteer fire departments, they get the money from the insurance companies, because they do the billing, we don't do the billing.
Even for the paramedic service?
Yeah, everything,
Oh,
they
okay,
do all.
that's where I'm confused.
And then it comes back into us, they'll bring us a check every month, or every other month.
So just roughly, how much is that in 12 months?
So in fiscal year 2019, we got 175,000, which also includes some money we got from Reading.
And we're expected to spend 300 this year, so it's costing us $1.25 to have the paramedic service. Is that a fair
That's
statement?
year-to-date, that's your year-to-date, right?
That was June 30th,
That's June.
year end.
Oh, okay.
It's costing the general fund the 300,000 that you see in the budget.
But the 100 and whatever you just said goes back into the general fund, so it kind of washes it
No,
out.
so
It doesn't.
none of the money that comes in from the paramedic goes to the the paramedic program is its own fund.
Enterprise
So
fund?
it's supposed to run even, but we know it doesn't. Actually, I take that back. It's not supposed to run even. The town funds a portion of it as a service. The town's portion of the service part is the 300,000 you see in there.
But why wouldn't, if it's reimbursed, why wouldn't that just be a reimbursement? It's not truly a reimbursement.
The reimbursement comes nowhere near covering the costs.
Right, I understand that,
So
but shouldn't it offset it? If like you.
it does, but
300.
so, but the paramedic fund is spending over 400,000.
Wow.
Because it's
Well, like I said, we
$32,000
pay-
a month
With
for
all
the
the
hospital.
salaries and the vehicles and
We give
equipment.
$32,000 to Danbury
Okay, now I
Hospital.
understand.
Okay, no, I get it now.
You're getting,
Yes.
it's a $700,000 budget, but now
Right.
you're wiping off
And,
the,
and Reading is putting in another
Percentage of the
12,000.
cost, right.
No, they're paying Danbury Hospital 12,000
oh,
for the service.
But Bob, does having Reading on with us, does it require us to have more coverage? Or would the coverage be the same without Reading? Is my question. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you look at the town of Bethel and we have 18,000 residents, Danbury Hospital or the paramedic service says, we're gonna require you to have X amount of ambulances, and this is the staffing that I need to do that. When we add Reading on, we're adding, I don't know, what do they have, 10,000, 12,000, I don't know. What I'm saying is, does that increase the staffing requirements? So are we really getting a benefit? Are we charging them enough to have them on our program, I guess is what I'm asking, is what's the ratio?
Well, they get billed separately by
they're paying
Danbury
12
Hospital.
grand for it too.
We get a bill, they get a bill.
So then why, they just reimburse us for the vehicles and stuff?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we
So
agree to
all the
buy the
supplies-
capital items, and they have to pay their own paramedic and all that? Got it.
Yeah, they're
We're
paying
sharing
for,
it.
that's the 12,000 they're paying for. There's 3 paramedics, there's 3 vehicles. Technically, I guess there's 2, and one is always standing, or sitting, standby. Okay,
So
so
they're
when the
paying for
first
their
2
share.
go, then the third guy comes into play. All right, but to Brian's point, I don't know if there's a savings. I think we would still have those 3 available to us if it was just Bethel. By bringing in Reading, I think they're just doing,
A favor to the town.
Yeah.
So I guess-
Just like the
Well,
dog
that
park.
and their
But when
helps
we bid it,
offset
we
the
bid it
vehicles.
only as Bethel, right?
But the way we've described this previously was that if we were to discontinue the joint venture with Reading, we would still have the same amount of fixed costs. We'd still have the 3 cars or whatever.
30.
Yeah.
What Reading does is kind of give some contribution margin to help offset the fixed
About
costs.
20% or something.
well, that's,
Yeah.
it's based on the call volume, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was 50% of the calls went to Reading, and they're using our vehicles, then they're gonna pay 50% of the cost of the maintenance and everything else that goes along with it.
Thank you.
So those are the 2 major capital items that are included in this increase. The car, which would be on the lease, and then the life pack. So,
You know, in some of those instances, people don't have insurance to pay.
Yeah, you're not
so-
getting paid all of them. Yeah,
Right,
I
so,
get you.
The town's not putting liens
like
on
we said, it
vehicles.
becomes a service.
And there's also a
Right.
difference between reimbursement between those on Medicare and those who are not.
I get it. It's only $20. Okay.
that's 405.
All right, I think that gets us through tonight's agenda, right? Okay, our next meeting, I'm sorry, our next meeting is the 3rd. The 3rd, where the Board of Selectmen will present to us, that starts at 6:30. The 3rd is Tuesday? Next Tuesday?
Yes.
Next Tuesday.
That's 7 o'clock, I'm sorry?
6:30,
6:30?
I don't have to schedule.
according to the schedule, 6:30, so as long as it hasn't changed.
But we're not deliberating that night. We're just listening to the board of selectmen and we're done.
Well, it says here we begin deliberations, but, well, let's wait and see how long it takes, and then we just set up the framework that we want to use to go through the departments. Now, Brian, you had a request of Bob for expenses, kind of revenues, what this all means, at least by the department-based presentations. Is that something you can email to us, or what is the impact of the departmental requests?
What I'm
Yeah, I'll
interested,
break that down by the different departments, just in total.
I think you're interested in seeing,
I'm interested in, and this is my thinking. I wanna see what the actual spending increase is. Then if you wanna back revenues out, you know, to see where that's gonna be. Cause my only point is that the spending increase is there forever. You never know whether revenues are gonna go up or down. So I'm just curious to see what is the actual spending increase based on their request. I'm not worried about anything other than that. And then if you wanna say, hey, this is my projected revenues, this is where I think the actual thing is gonna be, that's helpful too. But, you know, for me, once that spending's in there, it's always there, and revenues can fluctuate. We've seen that especially with growth in the grand list and building permits and bad economies and things like that, so it's just helpful for me.
The only, I agree with that, Brian, the only nuance though, and I think it'd be interesting to see, is that at least based on some of the departmental presentations, they're going to increase programs, et cetera, thinking that that's going to increase revenue. And we should consider those as being matched and permanent. And if they're not, then I think we analyze the expense in a slightly different way. And that's why I'd like to see.
Well, we can do it both. This is
Yeah,
the actual
absolutely.
spending increase. This is what we think it is with revenue, based on revenue, and that
Yeah.
way we have a better idea of where we're at.
Right, exactly. Because then we can start thinking about, okay, you got increase in spending percentages, and then
Right.
what are the increase in mill rate?
That'd be
We
great.
can play with the levers. So, I'm sorry, Bob, Brad, is that today's, what day is today? Today's Thursday. Is that something you think you could get out to us
Monday, Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday?
Probably.
Okay.
I think a lot of the departmental expense increases are already put together, you know, from the Excel worksheet, so I can just move those over, you know, and then I'll take a look at the revenue, what we had last year, and what it wound up, and then what they're budgeting this year. Like Park and Rec going from 601 to 611.
The department expenses are already in open gov though, the
Yeah.
increases.
Yeah, they're all there.
Wait, but
We need,
So that, I'm just misunderstanding what you're looking for, Brian.
what is the total increase in the budget? When
So
you
that's-
when you take debt service, department expenses, what is the overall increase in
If
the
you
budget?
look to the left-hand side of the budget,
It's
the number
up.
comes up there.
The number does, but it's broken down based on, so you
No,
want.
the total is there.
Right, but, so I'll figure out the percent, I'll divide it into last year's budget.
You're saying it keeps carrying after all the departments, it's carrying it on the
You
right
know
side?
the way you look at the schedule?
It's just
All right, to the left-hand side, there's a little arrow, you bring it back, and then all of a sudden,
Right, but you have it for the whole town when you take debt service, everything.
yeah, I got all that.
Right, but we don't have that right now, do we?
Well, you got the total there.
we do. It's in,
The
it's,
total percentage
it's not as
increase?
easily interpreted per se, you don't see all
Well,
the
could someone interpret it?
So
granularity.
if we could like interpret it.
Could we
numbers
interpret
type
it?
up.
No, but I
For
think
the
what you have to
slow-
do.
the slow-
How's that sound? Just interpret it.
The
for-
ones who
If
need
you want
intervention.
overall,
Correct.
all you gotta do is go here, take the
And it moves it over.
3,827 by the last year budget number of whatever, 77,900.
Could not someone just compute that to tell us what that might be?
Do you want percentage or do you want dollars?
I want
Percentage on
percentage.
dollars.
Well,
Because the dollars are
I
right
could
here.
talk to you tomorrow.
but I also like
Well, I can just show you where it
your
is.
format, where you see it by department, because I think then you kind of, you got the granularity to think about going in.
And then you can pick out which ones that are heavy hitters, so
So
to
here's,
speak.
Right.
so here's your total expenses request, is the 81, 818, 871.
Okay. Any, just so that we can kind of wrap this, any other matters to talk about? Not hearing any, entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Finance.
991.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to adjourn Board of
So it's
Selectmen.
up 3 million.
All in favor?
Aye.